like to call to order the regular meeting for Mount Airy Unified School District Board of Education for Monday, June 10th. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very much. We're going to do roll call. Ms. Mason?
Here.
Ms. Mayo?
Here.
Ms. Cowan?
Here.
Ms. Durkee is here, and unfortunately Mr. Lawrence couldn't join us this evening. I'm going to now report out on our closed session items. So item number 7.1, item number 1, expulsion of student number 15-19 from all regular schools in Mount Airy Unified School District.
Madam President, I move that student 15.19 be expelled from all schools of the Mount Diablo Unified School District, and that student 1519 may apply for readmission after Friday, December 20th, 2019. Prior to readmission, student 1519 must participate in 20 hours of individual counseling to address anger management and drugs, alcohol, complete 30 hours of community service, attend MDUSD Saturday workshop for anger management, participate in California Offender Program Services, COPS, and show evidence of a successful school experience with no suspendable infractions, maintain a 2.0 GPA or better, earn 30 credits, and have a 90% attendance rate.
Second?
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll go to the vote. And that passes 5001. Thank you. Item 7.2, item number 2. Sorry about that. Item number 2, expulsion of student number 16-19 from all regular schools in Mount Airy Unified School District.
I move that student 16-19 be expelled and that the expulsion be suspended with placement to be determined by the superintendent and the student services director. The following conditions shall apply and shall be completed by student 16-19 no later than December 20th, 2019. Student must participate in 20 hours of individual counseling to depression, impulsivity, and Latino community cultural competency. The student must complete 30 hours of community service to be determined by student services, the student services director. And the student must show evidence of a successful school experience with no suspendable infractions, maintain a 2.0 GPA or better, and earn 30 credits and a 90% attendance rate prior to readmission.
Great, thank you. We have a first and a second. And no further discussion, we'll go to the vote.
Second.
Okay, and that passes 5-0-0. I'm sorry, 4-0-0-1. Thank you. A lot of help tonight. It's good. Okay, we'll move on to item 3.3. Item number 3, readmission of student number 08-18 to regular schools of the Mount Averill Unified School District. And the board voted to readmit student 08-18. Item 7.4, item number 4, readmission of student number 06-19 to regular schools in Mount Averill Unified School District. And the board voted also to readmit the student. Item number 7.5, readmission of student number 07-19 into regular schools in Mount Averill Unified School District. And the board approved readmission for this student. Item 7.6, item number 6, readmission of student number 08-19 to regular schools in Mount Averill Unified School District. And the board approved readmission for the student. We approved the readmission. Sorry, can you not hear me? Okay. Item 7.7, item number 7, anticipated litigation, conference with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B, 4 cases. And in all cases, the board received information, and in one case, we also gave direction. Item 7.8, item number 8, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment. Did I lose you guys? Oh, did I lose myself? I'm trying to keep up with what's up there, or it's not keeping up. We're on 7.8, is that correct? Okay. Let me start over. Item number 8, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employees, Government Code, Section 54957B1. We had 3 cases that, in which case we all received information. 7.9, negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide direction to its representatives regarding represented employees pursuant to EERA, Government Code Section 3549.1. Agency negotiators, Nellie Meyer, Lisa Murphy Oates, and Rose Ramos. Agencies, Medea, DMA, MDSPA, CSEA, CST Local 1, and Teamsters Local 856. And we received information and gave direction. And 7.10, item number 10, Public Employee Government Code Section 54957.6 is interim superintendent. And we had discussion, and there'll be more to come on that, so thank you. Okay, so that's our report out on closed session, and we're going to move right into public employee appointment, and we'll start with the appointment of interim superintendent. Do you want to do it? Okay.
Board of Education, President Durkee, Vice President Mayo, and board members. I would like to recommend for the position of interim superintendent Roger Byland. I'm going to do this without a bio, Roger. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Durkee. Roger comes to us with a deep love and affection for Mount Diablo Unified. He has been an employee here, and he ended his career as a superintendent in Paradise, and still is considered one of the strong supporters during their difficult time during the fire, and is certainly a well-known person who has worked and given his heart to Mount Diablo in the past. I know other board members may have other comments that they want to share, but I would like to officially recommend for a vote Roger Byland for interim superintendent.
Thank you very much. So, Cindy, do you want to share anything else, or do you want to share anything else?
No, I would
We're all
just-
fans, but.
I was just gonna make a motion that we approve Roger Byland as our interim superintendent.
Second.
Okay, great. We have a first and a second, and we'll vote to the vote. And that passes 4-0-0. Gotta record you. So, sorry, we didn't give your whole resume, but so many of us know you well and have worked with you, and we're very thrilled to
I
join us again.
want to thank you for the opportunity to work with you and your team as you transition to the next superintendent. And following Mount Diablo, I'm just delighted with all the wonderful things that have been taking place. Had the opportunity to attend 2 retirements last week, and was reminded of the just very high quality and the dedication of the entire staff, teachers, support staff, administrators, everybody who's working for you. Just a privilege to come back for a short time. And as you said, over 30 years as a teacher and administrator, and also my wife Susan Huckinen, who's here. And as she is likely to point out, is everybody loves her more. But she in turn graduated from Mount Diablo Schools. Our children graduated from Mount Diablo Schools, and we really appreciate being a part of its continuing success. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here tonight. Okay, so our next piece, oh no, we're still doing public employees. No cards. We'll move on to 8.2, employment agreement and salary for interim. So you may want to stick around for this part, Roger.
I move that we approve the employment agreement and salary for the interim superintendent.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and we'll go to vote. We thought you might volunteer, but maybe not. And that passes 4-0-0-1. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 8.3, appointment of principal elementary school, Gregory Gardens Elementary.
President Durkee, Vice President Mayo, board members, I would like to recommend for the position of elementary principal, Gregory Gardens Elementary, Kathleen Kuntz, Katie. Katie comes to us with both a bachelor's and a master's from St. Mary's College. She has a degree in liberal and civic studies as well as education. She has experience as a kindergarten teacher. She worked at Silverwood Elementary. She worked at Walnut Acres Elementary and taught 3rd grade. And she also worked at Cambridge Elementary for nearly 10 years teaching kindergarten there. She also has experience as a vice principal at Rio Vista and Shore Acres and is currently in the interim position at Gregory Gardens. So I would like to recommend Kathleen Kuntz for the position of elementary principal, Gregory Gardens Elementary.
Thank you. I have a motion?
I reluctantly approve the appointment because we're going to miss her in Bay Point, of Kathleen Kuntz, to be the new principal of Gregory Gardens Elementary. Congratulations.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll go to the vote.
Did I scare you there?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not as good as Roger, so I had to write it down. Good evening, Dr. Meyer and board members. Thank you for this opportunity to work at Gregory Gardens. I've had such a great time getting to know the families at Gregory and Robert Shear. I'm really looking forward to continuing that journey with them. Cheryl Colano has been incredible. She has left hugely enormous shoes to fill. I'm super grateful to Jose Espinoza and Margie Kelbeck for their leadership and support through this whole process. My friends and my colleagues have really pushed me to go ahead and get through this, and I forgot to thank you guys last time, but I love my parents. They missed it last time, so thank you both. Thanks, Dad.
Okay, more good news. We're going to move on to appointment of principal elementary school, Walnut Acres Elementary.
Yes, thank you. Board members, for the position of elementary principal, Walnut Acres, I would like to recommend Lang Luong. Lang comes to us with a Bachelor's of Arts from UC Davis, a Master's in Science from CSU East Bay, and a Master's of Arts from UC Berkeley in Education and Sociology. She has experience as a teacher in multiple districts, including New Haven, Lafayette, and Berkeley. In Berkeley Unified, she was also an intervention coordinator and a math coach. She has been vice principal in San Leandro Unified, as well as an interim principal in San Leandro Unified, and in different assignments. She holds a multiple subjects credential and an admin service credential, and I would like to recommend Lang Luong for the principal of Walnut Acres Elementary.
Madam President, I move that we approve the appointment of Lang Luong as elementary principal for Walnut Acres Elementary.
Second.
Okay, great. We have a first and a second. We'll go to the vote. And that passes by 4.
Board members, Dr. Meyer and Mr. Espinoza, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be the principal of Walnut Acres. I'm just very honored and very excited, and I've already met some of the Jaguars here, and I'm even more excited when I saw them. I definitely look forward to continuing the growth of excellence for all the parties at the school, including teachers, staff, parents, the PTC, and most importantly, the students. So although I'm new to this district, I'm actually not new to Walnut Creek. My husband, who's here with me tonight, he actually has works down the street from Walnut Acres for more than 2 decades, and my sister has raised her family here as well. So I want to say thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to recognitions and resolutions. 9.1 is resolution number 18/19-62, moratorium on charter school expansion and strengthening of transparency and oversight in governance and practice. The board has had a chance to look at this.
Yeah, I just had some concerns about, I'm okay with the first half, but then when it starts calling in all the assembly bills, I'm hesitant to sign off and say I support all these bills because they usually go through lots of different alliterations before they're voted on, and we won't know what ends up in them. So up until there, I'm very supportive of it. So that was my comment.
So would you like us to bring it back at the next meeting?
If there's not a time issue, yeah. And I would just, like I
So
said,
there, yeah, do other board members have thoughts around that as well?
I read this as that we would support those bills. So you're saying as the bills change over time, would we continue to support as changes are made to those
saying we
bills?
support them,
And amend.
and they might look very different by the time they're actually voted on.
So would it work to strike just the designation of the bill? For example, in the first one, it's AB 1505, just, would it work? My mic is on. Now, can you hear me? No? Okay, would it work?
Oh, there you go.
There's a ghost up there. Would it work to strike the AB 1505 and just make the statements that are included?
Well, right before that, it says, therefore be it resolved, and then it says supports a moratorium on establishment of new charter schools in the state of California, and I would do a period, and that'd be the end of it. And not have all, and, because it continues to say, support state legislation introduced, which I don't know what that might be, and then it lists all these other assembly bills.
I would suggest a bullet point.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Good discussion.
Yes. Okay, we are now at public comments. Public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the board. We can't talk about whether the Warriors are going to win tonight.
Can't give any scores.
Jurisdiction of the Board of Education of Mount Airy Unified School District that is not on this agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened if there are multiple speakers on any one subject. The public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. So what we always explain, if you haven't been through this process before, we appreciate public comment. We want to get public comment. We're governed by what's called the Brown Act, and so we are not allowed to respond to public comment, which sometimes we can tell people are a little thrown by that. They're passionately speaking about something, and we're just looking. We can ask for clarification if something's not clear, and we also can refer the issue to the superintendent. So if we're not responding, it's not because we're not interested. We're listening carefully, but we can't respond. So, okay. So with that, we'll start with Lisa Davis, Local 1.
Good evening, board members. I'm Lisa Davis, Public Employees Union Local 1 Business Agent and Chief Negotiator. Public Employees Union Local 1 once again demand that Mount Diablo step up in its progress in contract negotiations that's been going on since November of 2017. We are taking this opportunity to publicly share that we are completely fed up with the way in which our contract negotiations is progressing. We care about the workers and wish that Mount Diablo acknowledge the work as performed by our employees. Be fair. Direct your district negotiators to truly negotiate. Stop dragging your feet at the table. Stop delay after delay after delay, and settle a fair contract for the Local 1 employees now. Our union members have not had a pay raise since 2017. This has left them feeling undervalued and demoralized. We're asking for immediate progress and respect as employees of the district. This is a true first that negotiations has taken this long. Our goal, of course, has always been to settle a contract. The union made its financial proposals when we sunshined back in 2017. Once again, all of our non-financial issues have been resolved, but you're still dragging your response to settle a contract. The offer of a one-time 2% off schedule is inappropriate. As always, we look forward to the bargaining process, working through to its completion and a conclusion that can be satisfactory with all parties. So Board, we are asking that you direct the Mount Diablo negotiators to step up its pace and finalize what we started over a year ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Hickey.
Good evening, board members, Madam President, Superintendent, and audience. My name is Debbie Hickey, and I'm on the negotiation team. I'm here tonight because of 3 items. First, you refused to give your negotiation team, your committee, the right to give us any new monies. Yet, your team has come back and forth and told us many times that there's a freeze on money. Number 2, your HR and administration, both in emails and negotiations, have stated that there's no money and will be no hiring. However, I'm looking at your board items right now. Item number 17.1, item number 17.11. These are 2 classified jobs, one of which is a brand new job, and 2, one that is being revisited. So, what happened to the money? Why are you telling us there's a freeze when you're hiring more people? There's also an increase in your contracts, 13.7 through 13.14. Again, where's your money? You told us you were freezing. However, we are still sitting at a bargaining table with no money. On your web page, item number 3, and this one hurts the most. On your web page, at the very bottom, it says negotiation update. Your web page, your words. I feel that we're being threatened. This is a threat to our union members when you say that because you're giving to someone else, you're going to fire secretaries, other jobs, administration jobs. You've listed those items out there. So that's threatening. And that is used as a scare tactic. How fair do you think that is to me? How fair do you think it is for us to be standing in front of our own students knowing that someday your principal may be doing my job? But I would like you to come and sit in my job. You're going to be the one who's doing it as soon as you fire us. Sorry.
Thank you. Annie? Is Annie here? Did you hear me, Annie?
Is this the organizations or the public comment?
Public comment.
Oh, no, I need more 3 minutes. I'm on organizations.
Okay, George Fulmar.
Yeah, George Fulmar, Concord. Looked up the other day, I've been volunteering in the schools since 2011, always in the monument schools and mostly bilingual classes. I really have enjoyed it all the way through. I was also started coming to board meetings a few years ago, so I watched Dr. Meyer in action, and I really want to thank her for her service. One of the things is the administrators look much more like the kids now, and that's really terrific. A lot more Latino administrators in right places, especially in the monument schools. All the principals now are bilingual Latinos, and that's really terrific. That's what's needed there. But you also got quality people, so that's a double header. And I do want to put a shout out for the newsletter. She pulled that off too, because with the lack of the press coverage, newsletter really does help. So I've studied the English Learner Program. I've really enjoyed it. Carmen Garces and others. I've gone to DLAC meetings, but I'm honest with the DLAC group. They've really been a bust as far as developing leadership. So there's just something wrong with that picture. I don't know what you do, but if they can't develop leadership there, then what's it all about? They're not here tonight, I'm sure. They don't come and they don't follow the board, so they're just in isolation. And again, I think you have to look at that. I think what you need is an English Learner Program Advisory Committee. Kind of a broad range of people from the community that can meet with Carmen once a month and talk about the program. You need to look at the achievement gap. I think you need a white paper. Why is there an achievement gap between the schools, between the communities? There's a readiness gap. There's an internet gap. There's a story in the paper today about kids that don't have internet access at home. They fall behind, especially in high school. So you're doing these Chromebooks now in the schools, but if kids don't have that access at night, then they probably can't be as competitive as with the other kids. I guess finally, I've had the pleasure of being at Oak Grove Middle for the last 3 months, I guess. I'm going back next year. I really think good things are going on there. There's a great principal, good administrators. You lost one for some reason. He was great. He had to leave because he didn't have a job there again. I don't really understand that. But, a lot of teachers are coming back, and good things are going on at Oak Grove Middle. That field is being completely revamped, the athletic field, so that's great. And again, I really enjoy there and all of Monument Schools. I appreciate everything that Dr. Meyer's done to make those schools as good as they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Tim.
Okay. Dr. Meyer and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Tracy Tim, and my son just finished the first grade at Bel Air Elementary. I volunteered in the classroom regularly and was involved on the site council as well. I'm speaking tonight because I want to put in a word for Bel Air and for the students there that are dear to my heart, and to share with you how some district processes for special needs students have impacted the classroom environment. In my son's class, from the beginning of the year, there were 3 or 4 students who showed signs of anger, aggression, defiance, and emotional disturbance. They were disruptive and disrespectful, but the teacher was experienced in working with this population, so the first trimester was generally productive. The environment became chaotic and threatening after the winter break when a couple of new students joined the class, one of whom has special needs. The students who were already disruptive now had the perfect storm. They picked on, unprovoked, the new student to anger, grabbing his school supplies or riling him up. His behavior would escalate exponentially with the energy of the rest of the class. So during the second and third trimesters, the same 6 students were regularly out of their seats, not following directions, running around the classroom and verbally harassing others. One student threw a chair, which hit a classmate. Another tried to grab the phone away from the teacher while she was calling for support. Needless to say, not a lot of learning happened. I am deeply saddened and appalled at the environment my son was in. It was endangering to students and an unsafe work environment for the teacher. What's more, many of these dangerous situations should never have occurred. I could see as a volunteer parent that intervention was needed, yet these students were kept in the same class for nearly 6 months. Truth is, Bel Air has a number of students with special needs, both social, emotional, and special education. The process to be identified and be eligible for services takes a long time, and there's no one on campus to provide support in the meantime. Often, the principal, Mr. Humphrey, would personally come sit in the classroom or remove a student from class. There's also no programs on campus that specifically address the needs of these students once they've been identified, like my son's classmate. They must wait to be transferred to another school, or in his case, he's been asked to wait another 3 months for more documentation. I work closely with the teacher, I met with the principal, so now I'm beseeching you to make a conscious and deliberate effort to help Bel Air before these situations escalate. Please trust the judgment of the staff when reviewing their documentation. Please consider the impact of your budget decisions for staffing. and reconsider policies in place that cause delays for special needs students. And please provide your support to the faculty and staff by assigning 2 or 3 classroom aides to Bel Air. This would allow the principal to do his job and the teacher to do hers, and would help make the classroom more conducive to learning for students of all abilities. These skilled and dedicated employees of MDUSD may be the only adults that these sweet children know that care enough to set boundaries for them and are gritty enough to do it day after day. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Scott Rafferty.
Well, I hope to speak to you before your closed session, but I didn't realize it started as early as it did.
We started
So,
earlier, yeah.
but I have, I think, good news to report that I've had a really positive discussion with your attorney and cleared a lot of things out about your intentions. I want to tell you, I have nothing to do in the middle of July. I would love to have those sessions then, but I've confirmed today, I didn't know this afternoon, but I've confirmed this evening, it just doesn't work for the Latino community to have it when school's not in session. So I'm hoping that we can work something out in August and September to have those. I actually think it's a really great idea to have the demographer come and spend real time with people. And when you do that, there can be some interaction that you can't get in these hearings in front of you guys in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So, and I've tried to assure you this before, but this is going to be really good. You don't have serious problems. You're pretty well separated. And it's not all about race. I mean, we learned that in both Concord City and Antioch City. You got to look at a lot of different factors. And it's not about you. It's not about the trustees. And it's not about people that might want to run for trustee. It's about just different groups of voters having a representative. And it's not that unusual for the representative not to be of the same ethnicity as even when it's a majority district. But it's somebody who has convinced them that they are representing the interests of that neighborhood. And there are a lot of non-minorities who kind of want to have a neighborhood representative too, who can come back and say, I fought the good fight, and I represented our interests accurately, and this is the best I could do. And I think people will believe that. It takes the 5 of you out of the position of being, I represent everybody, and I have the best answers. So in a way, it's how representative democracy works, and I think it's going to work well, particularly here. And I'll talk a little bit more at 17.5. But the process, I just want to say the timeline is important. To have genuine participation, that we not have it in the middle of the summer, and that's why I was so concerned earlier today. So thank you.
Thank you. Carmen Girones Torres.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Meyer, MDUSD community. I want to start by sending good wishes to Dr. Meyer on your new job, and thank you for the years we have been able to work with you. You came to Mount Diablo Unified School District when we were almost a sinking ship. And with the twist of luck on the economy and the leadership, you got us out of the mess left by the prior administration. Unfortunately, we, the CST unit, feel Mount Diablo Unified School District is going down the same path we had many years ago. Poor communication within departments, no transparency, retaliation to members for coming to their union, complete disrespect to the CST members. Our contract is being violated over and over, and is proven at the negotiation table. The CST unit has been negotiating for over a year, to be precise, a year and a half plus. And now this unit will be going on a second year with our contract. Our last negotiation meeting with Mount Diablo Unified School District, they offer us a 2% one-time off schedule for the 18-19 school year and 0 for 19-20. We have another negotiating meeting on June 17. We hope Mount Diablo Unified has a better offer, and we hope that the district stops lagging on our negotiation meetings, pretending to be negotiating in good faith. If no better offer is at the table, don't waste our time. Stop the continued disrespect to our union members. My members are working with our salary increase in 2017, and the cost of living continues to rise in this area. Medical insurance continues to rise. Many of our members have to change medical insurance plans yearly because of the constant increase of premiums to be able to afford coverage. It's always nice to read words of appreciation on the website from administrators, but words don't pay my rent, don't pay our bills. I hope I will not be retaliated against for speaking on behalf of my unit. We deserve respect, decent salaries, and good working conditions. Respect is a two-way street. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to board member reports, and we'll start with Ms. Mason.
There was a lot going on. We had many graduations that we went to. It's my favorite time of the year because that's when our students really shine and show us that they are getting a lot of their education and they're going out ready to tackle the world and probably be better stewards and citizens than we have been. There was Principal for the Day, there was Career Pathway meeting, DLAC, Coffee and Kids meeting that Ms. Khan and I were both attended with Miss Congressman DeSalegna. I just demoted him back to supervisor. I went to the County Office of Ed budget meeting. We had a retirement event. It's really just a really fun time of year to interact with our staff and our kids, even though it's hard to believe it during public comment. It has been a pretty good year. And also the Racial Justice Task Force that I was part of for 2 years finally kicked off their second part, which is going to be the Racial Justice Oversight Committee, of which I've been appointed to serve, and we had our first meeting last week, and we're looking forward to tackling the issues that not only does the county face with racial justice and the youth that we serve, but the school district as well. And I find it's very, there's a good overlap between the work we do on equity and the work and the statistics that we're getting from that group as well. So I look forward to continuing that and to another successful school year next year.
Great, thank you. Ms. Mayo?
Thank you. Can you hear me, or is my mic still not working? Good, no comment.
Works out.
Hello? Okay. On May 18th, 19th, I represented the board at the CSBA Delegate Assembly meeting. This next week, or this week, I will give Mrs. Maher an electronic copy of all the reports that were provided at the meeting. So check in with Mrs. Maher if you'd like a copy. The files are too large to email. There were unique discussions at the Delegate Assembly meeting around special education, and CSBA has published a new policy book and helpful tool for board members. Here's one for Ms. Mason and Ms. Durkee. Ms. Cohn, I believe you have one already, and one for Mrs. Maher, and then I've already given one to Mrs. Aguili, and then I'll give a couple to CAC. I think that the board will, everyone will find these very informative and helpful. The second major discussion and presentation was on implicit bias. It was a presenter by the name of Nicole Anderson. Perhaps some of you have heard about her. She presented for an hour and a half on Sunday morning, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the room was packed. So I think that I will also share the slides from her PowerPoint with Mrs. Maher so that you could look at those. I would be interested in seeing how this presentation might be received in the Mount Diablo School District. Like you said, we went to all of the graduations, and there were 11 graduations in all, and I think several of us were at almost all of them. We had the Career Pathways meeting at Mount Diablo High School, the retirement reception. I attended 2 PTA events, the Mount Diablo Council of PTAs held their election meeting on May 22nd, and Director Dominic Machi presented to those present the Food and Nutrition Service Program changes. They had a lot of questions, and the information was well received, and he brought some dessert goodies, so that made it even more interesting. I also, with the rest of you, attended the Facilities Master Plan, and we also had a presentation on the LCAP at the Parent Advisory Meeting. I wanted to share with you that there's been some movement in special education. We received an email from Dr. Aguili today about additional funding for special education. I apologize, I can't get my phone to pull up your memo up right now for the details regarding that, but it looks like it's very good news for districts throughout the state of California, and that it will be in the final budget bill. I also wanted to bring to your attention the bill AB 39 by Mara Tsuchi, which has been passed, is out of the Assembly and has been sent to the Senate for approval. And in fact, on Wednesday, June 12th, there is a hearing, so if you want to reach out to any of our senators or individuals to encourage their support, it looks like this bill is getting some recognition. AB 39 proposes a $35 billion increase above the current level for LCAP. The funding increase is to ensure that districts will be able to cover increased fixed costs by dedicating 84% of the funds, approximately $30 billion, to the base grant, which provides the greatest spending flexibility for districts. Maybe it won't happen, but it sure is great to think about it and dream big. So if you feel like reaching out to our senators, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Count?
All right, thank you. So yes, it was a busy time. Enjoyed attending many events with my new colleagues here. It was my first time to attend the graduations and get the chance to speak at a few of them, so really appreciated that. Wish I could have attended even more of them, as many of you have. It was great to see that each school has its own special traditions and spirit. And just, you know, that these students, whether they're from our traditional high schools or our alternative schools, whether they're from college now or adult education, you know, every one of you out there are going to just truly improve our community and our world. And it's really, really great to see it. So congratulations to all of our graduates. One other event that Trustee Mason and I both attended was the Rio Vista Career Day, which was really fantastic. I enjoyed sharing my experience as an engineer, and I was really impressed with how much hands-on engineering those students are already doing with the EIE kits and real life examples of things that they're solving. So that was great to see. And lastly, I just wanted to express some gratitude to district staff, to teachers, to the administration, for really finishing the year out strong. It's been a busy time of year as always, but especially this year with some additional tasks. We have held community input for our superintendent search, our facilities master plan, the by-trustee area elections. I'm just so grateful for everyone's time and efforts in all of these areas. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you. So I won't be redundant, but you know, I will just add, it was very well said about the differences you see in the graduations. I mean, they're all graduations, but really each school and each program has its own special kind of culture and traditions, etc. So it is great. I think I missed one graduation, so it's great to, you know, be able to make as many as possible and see those you know, students and the cultures and the families, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really wonderful. And I'll just add kind of a fun thing is I think probably others received letters, but we got them kind of late because the way mail gets to us, and you know, it's really nothing can be done about that. But several letters from students at Sequoia Middle School in a civics project they were required to write to somebody in policy And they're just so cute, you know, they're heartfelt, and they're quite intelligent and mature in a lot of ways, but, you know, issues like food, you know, the kitchen. And it's an interesting discussion around, we want healthy food, and I think their definition of healthy might be a little different. But, you know, really sincere about use of plastic in our kitchens and, you know, our food services. So, and they're working in teams, so it was really great. So I managed to get a response back to them because school was almost out, so that was good. That was fun. So with that, we'll move on to our superintendent's report.
I think we've been spending a lot of time together because we're all going to talk about the same thing. To start out, wanted to just share, as we've ended the year, June 10th, there have been so many wonderful activities that have taken place. So many end of the year celebrations and exciting activities, and the showing of gratitude was abundant at all of our campuses as they ended the year. The parents who came together, the community who came together, and the support that we've had from our local organizations and our groups. I wanted to share, as we get closer, that as we continue the district mission, I highlighted a little portion in case none of you spoke of the graduations. Just kidding. But I did want to highlight that because as we finish, it's important to not only think about how we started, pre-K, preschool, and then how we end the year. And so it really is a lovely time of year where we get to kind of sit back and take a deep breath and appreciate all the hard work that we've had. So upon graduation, we hope to provide strong foundations for the future, for our community and for our students in particular. So to kind of go through, you know, since pictures are 1,000 words, College Now, which is now in its 4th year and doing wonderfully, they celebrated first, and so they had many students who were going on to, in fact 100% of them were going on to continue their study, and just a wonderful program with Heather Fontanella as the lead, and the many students that participated were also in the other graduations. They had the banner that said College Now. And so it was a very exciting partnership that we have with DVC. And so it was just a great way to start out with a small group that was very excited. And then on Friday, and it's kind of nice to reminisce and look at the pictures again, they have this tradition, as was mentioned, traditions where they have the young ladies in dark green and the gentlemen in red, and they sit on different sides of the pavilion. And so it was just a wonderful time. Lauren Barbosa is getting better and better at giving his speech in 2 languages and just doing a fantastic job of leading the school. And the students, as always, were just fantastic. So great event at Mount Diablo High School. Then Olympic, and Olympic is always a heartfelt promotion of students who did not find themselves successful in another setting, but they came there and felt very protected and supported. They have a shortened day, and they have a higher counseling ratio. And they also give numerous opportunities to continue if they fall down, to get back up and take classes again. One of the things that's noteworthy about Olympic is their service learning. And so with that service learning, the students have community service projects that really make a great impact on our community. So nothing like looking at the excitement and the joy on that day. Then Concord High, we mentioned, you know, the ones that we had to miss. This is always one of my favorites, and it's kind of blurry, but in the middle they always have a song where they do the signing along with the song, and so it's a great event, and the students were very excited about graduating. This is where you started to see more of those painted mortar boards, although Olympic did a great job with that, so we're going to put a collection together of the mortar boards so you can see some of the quotes and some of the things that we did. Bottom right here is one of our counselors who was a college career counselor and is now one of our regular counselors, Becky Heindel. Looking at our other schools, we had Crossroads and Summit and Prospect and what am I missing? Oh, Horizons, Gateway, thank you. And this is always a fantastic event. All of the schools are wonderful, but it's particularly touching when the students talk about how they're doing this for their children, and they're still children themselves. And so it's just quite, the students at Crossroads are so dedicated. The upper right-hand picture there. But, if you think about, being a young mother at any age, let alone 15, 16, and then going to school full-time and often working as well. So it's quite a challenge. And then our other students, they really enjoy it from Prospect and Gateway and our other Horizons. Just an interesting mix, and you can see the different personalities from the speeches. I mean, they're like completely different worlds. And so it's really a wonderful ceremony. You can see here on the right, American grown with Mexican roots. The artistry on those mortar boards, it was amazing. Just really works of art. It might be something to consider in the future for an art show, mortarboard art show. Looking at promotions, because we don't want to forget it was happening at 5th grade and 8th grade and even kindergarten. We had just some wonderful events where our schools played music, parents were involved, different types of activities, students dressed to the nines, and just a really fun way of celebrating this time of year. So just absolutely adorable. The great sign of Bancroft, it's about as big as the students. So they did a great job on that. Moving to Northgate, I'm going to have to talk about it. Mr. McAllister is in his element at the graduation ceremony. He really should consider this as a full-time profession. Just kidding. He's great the other times as well. And so really wonderful speeches, and the music was just fantastic during the event, and the Concord Pavilion just thanks to them for the great partnership that they've had with us. And so just a fantastic event. I didn't want to jinx it at the last meeting, but every single promotion or graduation was beautiful. The students were very respectful, and I'd like to say that has always been the case. So I'll say that's always been the case for most, but this time it was all. So it was really nice to see that. So Northgate here. Then moving to the Falcons, purple, and just a fantastic event. College Park has a tradition of where the teachers that the students request give out their diplomas, which is kind of a logistical challenge, but they do it so nicely and beautifully. And so the rows of students they sit with, they give them out, and really was a wonderful event to see, and a nice way for students to honor the teachers that they have, and just a great tradition for students to be able to have that choice. Going forward as well, the Bridge program. There are a couple of these that we always say bring a Kleenex, and the Bridge program is one of them. They are our 23-year-olds who have had a lot of training in life skills, how to use BART, grocery shopping, checkbook balancing, all the things that really all students need in order to be strong community members. And this particular program with speakers and singers, and just true gratitude from the students of the program when they received their such joy, and the parents too. You need the Kleenex for the parent, watching the parents, because they're so proud, and the students are just extremely happy, but the parents are a little choked up. So it's a lovely event. And then Ignacio Valley High School, they had also had some great mortarboards. APA Huckabee did a great job. You can see here speaking to the students and the genuine respect that they have for him. I saw that really at all of the ceremonies. The interaction between the staff and the students was very strong, and just a lovely promotion exercise. And really they all had different tenor, and were all just really well done, but you see the beautiful faces of our students. And then adult ed, and this one over here, I can relate to that finally. With my last thing I got, it was like, oh, don't have to do that anymore. And so what's wonderful about adult ed in Victoria, she also was there. Jonathan Roslin is here speaking, and it occurred at Loma Vista. And this is always a great event because you can see in this bottom picture, there's a child, much like Crossroads. You see the children of the students, and it really has changed not just one person's life, but a family, and then a community. So very exciting, and just a great, always a great ceremony. And then Oak Grove here, and it was mentioned by Mr. Fillmore in his public comment about the great things happening at Oak Grove and YB with IB. And I have to say, I know I'm not supposed to do this, so I'm taking some license. I agreed with nearly all of Mr. Fillmore's comments about the positive things about me. Just kidding. But I did have to say, I just wanted to commend our parent groups that develop leaders, including the CAC and the DLAC. And I know we have Denise Lambert here, and we have Enrique Sanchez here, and the leadership that they have shown in how they nurture the community members. And I know he was referencing future representation on a board, and so we're going to see that. I know that, and so I'm confident that that will happen. And I've been lobbying both of them forever, so maybe it'll pay off. So when it does, I will come back to say hello. So anyway, I just wanted to recognize those groups for their strong contributions, and thank you for your service. And look how beautiful our Oak Grove students are there. So that's my report.
I received a communication from AXA Region 6 that Cindy Medioni is going to be recognized with the President's Awards for Region 6. And she will be recognized on June 20th at a awards dinner, so in Pleasanton. So if you see Cindy, be sure and tell her congratulations.
That's great. Congratulations. Okay, we are now to our consent agenda. Come back.
Please come back.
Yeah, please come back. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved, adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. So I would ask if the board has any items they would like to pull. Okay, then I will
Make a motion, and then we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Yeah, okay. We have a first and a second. We'll move to a vote. That passes 4001. Thank you. Okay, we are now at communications, 16.1, district organizations. At regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation following the consent agenda. Items are limited to those which are informational. So, Annie.
Superintendent Meyer, board, audience. Well, there's a lot to say. Summer school has been a nightmare. And if anybody tells you differently, I had on here they're a liar, but I'm going to change it. They're not telling you the truth. I'm not saying last minute, very last minute. A few things to get fixed. Phone calls, all day issues. The first problem was you had nobody really knowing how it worked. Your worker bees, the ladies over there in that office, did the best they could do with no direction. You picked a really bad time to get rid of your assistant director. And please don't act like we're all stupid when messages are sent out that say to everybody, we're so happy. That this person has gotten on, moving on to a new job. We're really more intelligent than that. I've seen these messages before and nobody's so happy. Did you bother checking with everybody who thought was doing a good job? You all know my opinion, and I'm not the only one. People are too afraid to speak up. Bad things happen. Between some of your toxic work sites and lack of respect for the classified, which once again, classified was really no big deal. I reminded people, happy classified week, and and at other sites, and most of them acted like I had two heads and didn't know what I was talking about. So for those that have tried to clean up the mess and personnel on summer school, I do appreciate them trying. I don't even have words. And now, and you know what, this area thing, I'm not real crazy about that. I was just talking to Eddie out there, Eddie Gerson, our council meeting. Because I've discovered that when things like this happen, you get somebody like the person that's my area for the city is a charter school advocate. Like, I'm going to vote for a charter school advocate? I don't think so. So I don't get to vote on a city council thing because I refuse to vote for them. And I hope that's not what it's going to be like since we're going to do this area thing. I get it, it costs less money for whenever you're campaigning and all the stuff you have to do. Truly, I get all that, but I'm still not crazy about it. I told you I needed more than 3 minutes. I'm not doing 3 minutes today. Another one of the problems is I had a member out on paid leave for 4 months. That's because they forgot about him. I had to remind them 2 weeks ago about my member that had been paid out on leave. I've had to, when I send messages over there to personnel, we still have got something going on. We cannot get an answer, so we've started putting the superintendent's name on there. That helped. We got an answer in 2 hours after 4 or 5 weeks. But I don't think I should have to put the superintendent's name on an email that should be answered anyway. I wish I could say things were good, but they're not. In this summer school, like I said, I think it's halfway getting straightened out right now. I know I've talked to them, and I know they were working on it again today, because there's still some issues going on, but I have never in my life seen a mess what went on in this year, ever. Seen a mess like this. So, that's because you had nobody in there that knew how to do it. The women that were in there were trying to do it of what they knew, what went on, but that they were doing their best. That's all I can say, because there is no direction in there. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to business action item 17.1, resolution 18/19-58, education protection account, EPA. This is an annual event, right? Do we have any for a motion. Or we have questions.
Okay, just in summary, that with the passage of Proposition 30, the Schools and the Local Public Safety Protection Act of 2012 created the EPA account for school districts. This act requires the school board declare by resolution its intended use of the funds for 1920's fiscal year, and the spending plan is attached, so this is a resolution for action tonight, so we recommend a yes vote.
I would make a motion that we approve the resolution 18/19-58 for the education protection account.
Second. Okay, we have a first and a second. If we don't have any other comments or questions, we'll move to the vote. That passes 4-0-0-1. Thank you. Okay, 17.2, public hearing and adoption of the Mount Albany Unified School District Special Education Local Plan Area, SELPA, Annual Budget Plan and Annual Service Plan for the 2019-2020 school year. This is on for action. Okay, so there's not any questions or comments, or someone would like to make a motion? We heard about this at CAC as well.
You have to open.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to open, I'm sorry, I didn't get my thing. Okay, open the public hearing. If there's anyone would like to make a comment.
Don't all rush up at the same time.
Okay, no comments, and we'll close the comment. That's all we have to do, okay.
But we also have to approve it.
Okay, so.
Madam President, I move that the board adopt the proposed 2019-20 Mount Diablo School District Annual Budget and Annual Service Plan for special education.
Second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and we will go to the vote. And that passes 4-0-0-1. Thank you. Okay, 17.3, public hearing for Mount Albany Unified 2019-2020 Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and LCAP Federal Addendum. This is up for action. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, we do. And just to open, this is our accountability plan that is required every year, and it promotes our three main goals of college and career readiness, professional learning, and community and parent engagement. So with that, I'd like to introduce our Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Jennifer Sachs, who has a presentation on our LCAP.
Thank you, Superintendent Meyer, Board President Durkee, Vice President Mayo, and other board members. So yes, we do have a brief presentation on our local control accountability plan. Just to ground our conversation in two very important areas of the LCAP. It all started with the local control funding formula, which is a formula for allocating district funding. It's funding that must be data driven and connected to outcomes. It is funding that we receive in different tiers. We all receive base, and then certain districts, depending on the number of students, that fall into different categories, such as English learners, foster youth, low income. We get different percentages on top of our base. So along with the LCFF comes our local control accountability plan. And that is the document that actually describes how we utilize the LCFF funding in order to support student needs, and how we look at indicators in order to monitor our success over time. It's important that this plan must align with other site and district plans, and actually Mount Diablo's, all of our single plans for student achievement do align to our LCAP. So how the LCFF works, and I mentioned this a bit, that we have base grants, we have supplemental grants, and concentration grants. Every student generates funding within the base grant, And then depending on the percentage of students from low income, as I said, English learners, foster youth, will get supplemental grants. But then concentration grants are for those districts that do have a 55% of their student demographic that meets either English learners, foster youth, or students coming from low income situations. And I think that's important. This is actually information that's been provided in many budget presentations, which shows the discrepancy between some districts that are very near to Mount Diablo, such as Pittsburgh and Antioch, and how they're funded versus Mount Diablo, since we are only funded with base and supplemental dollars. So all local school districts must adopt a local control accountability plan. It is a 3-year plan, but as you take a look at ours, we're actually in our last year. So this provides the state of California the opportunity to revamp it, because then it starts up for another 3 years. Each district's LCAP must include indicator data, goals, actions, and expenditures. The LCAP must include services and information about how we're supporting students that have been historically underserved and performing at different levels of achievement. And the LCAPs must also address 8 state priorities, and those are listed there. Everything from basic services, which are more teachers, textbooks, teacher assignments, school climate, access to courses. So it's a variety of different areas to ensure that all of those critical aspects of a school district are taken into account. So the local control accountability plan, they have added some bits and pieces to it. Ours is now over 200 pages. And so it starts with a budget overview for parents. Over time, the feedback that the State Board of Education had received was that there was budget information all throughout the plan, and really what they wanted was a very tight summary of the budget for parents to take a look at. And so that's the first, I would say, 2 to 3 pages of the plan itself. Then you have an executive summary beyond that of the highlights of the plan. Then it goes into an annual update where we actually surveyed all of the different departments in our district as well as school sites and asked them, when they take a look at the activities for 18-19, what are some of the highlights? What are the things that they've done? What are the things that they didn't do? And all that information's in there, as well as what we originally budgeted, as well as what was our estimated actual expenses. And so we do a kind of a side-by-side to compare those two. After we take a look at, okay, what have we done this last year? We talk to our advisory groups and our stakeholder groups, and we collect information from them. How do their things have been going? What thoughts and ideas do they have about the future? And actually, this is not just a one and done presentation. This is actually information that's collected throughout the year. And so it's information as, month to month from DLAC meetings, from CAC meetings and PAC. We're collecting all of that information. That all goes into the goals and action and services for 1920, since again, this is our last year. So we have added some different activities. We've modified some, kept some the same. And in the document, you'll see designations on whether or not it's an unchained action or it has been modified. From there, we have 2 new parts to the plan. We have an actions and services chart. And actually what that does is it lifts out all of those specific actions and services specifically focused on students that are in our foster youth program, students that are coming from low-income situations, our English learners. Because really what we wanted to do and what the State Department wanted to do is to have this very clearly delineated that these were areas that we are really supposed to utilize supplemental funds to improve and increase services for these students. And so now the way the document flows is you're going to see a chart which actually pulls the activities and pulls the budget items and then tallies the funding that's being targeted towards those activities. What we've provided, because this is a very meaty, dense document, is an acronym list at the very end, which hopefully will help folks as they get stuck on the acronyms. It's helped me, because sometimes I forget too, of all the different acronyms that we have in education. Something that the LCAP is definitely connected to, as we've talked about before, is our state and local indicators. And this is our dashboard. And I've presented this a couple different times along with the Director of Assessment, Research, and Evaluation, Shannon Ortland. And we have kind of talked about how this is really showing where we fall within a range of colors. So the highest level would be blue, and then the lowest level would be red. Any area that is identified as a red or orange, or any area where we fall 2 levels below, or any of our groups of students fall 2 levels or below the color for all students, we have to highlight that in the LCAP about what we're trying to do in order to support those groups. We have the dashboard indicators, which does look like a dashboard of a car, and then we have our local indicators, which are actually areas that we self-report on. And so we collect this information by survey, we collect the information from observation, and so this is something that we do report out on our own. Our LCAP continues to focus on two, which we kind of call like overarching or mega goals. The top one focuses on a college and career going culture, having a rigorous instruction and support for students. The second goal really focuses on a highly qualified, culturally proficient and responsive staff that is certificated as well as classified, all members of our school community. And then goal 3 really talks about how are we working with our families and our community to be informed, engaged, and empowered partners. If indeed the document is one where you would rather just kind of zero in on different areas, we provided this LCAP at a glance within the document itself as almost a table of contents. So if you wanted to know, for example, more about teacher collaboration, which would be in the blue area, you may want to turn to goal 2.2. If you wanted to know more about arts and athletics, you might go to goal 1.19 and 1.20. So these numbers do connect to the areas of the plan. And if you take a look as you go down through the different bars, we've got the purple, which is college and career, the blue, which is professional learning, and then goal 3, which is green. And then that small kind of bluish bar at the very end, or right before the bottom, really talks about a continued focus on our special populations and equity. And then the very last box talks about our local indicators as well as our state indicators. This is where we have information with regards to iReady benchmarking, algebra readiness, 9th grade credits. So these are other areas that we are monitoring achievement over time. Kind of the highlight reel of some areas that we have been working on for 18-19, and this is not a fully inclusive list. There's many, many things that we have been working on fall into goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3. Just a few that I can highlight. At the bottom of goal 1, where we really have worked on this last year, an expansion of AVID, IB, as well as our dual language opportunities for students. Highlights for goal 2, which is really our professional learning. We've been having a lot of great feedback with regards to our classified staff training that occurred on our professional development days, where it was voluntary for staff to attend. We did, if they did attend, compensate them, but it was an opportunity for different departments really to support our classified staff members. As well as we've had a Tier 2 administrator program, which is in its second year, helping our administrators clear their credentials. On that, for the bottom of that list, we've really worked on also percentage of staff representing a more diverse workforce, and I think actually one of our public comment cards addressed that. Goal 3, certain areas that I'd like to highlight are parents and advisory members presenting at conferences. I think I was corrected. I thought at CABE it was only like 100 and some odd people in the room, and they corrected me. They said it was like over 250 individuals in the room hearing the presentation, so my apologies. Our parents and advocacy members, advisory members advocating up at Ledge Day up in Sacramento. Another area that we're very proud of this last year was we added equity counselors supporting our high needs communities. They're working very diligently at the Mount Diablo High School feeder pattern as well as Ignacio Valley High School. So on the agenda, you're going to see not only the LCAP, but you're also going to see something referred to as the Every Student Succeeds Act Addendum, otherwise known as ESSA. So there was a differing of opinion between the state of California and the federal government with regards to the Local Control Accountability Plan and whether or not it met all the rules and regulations around federal guidance having to do with Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. The state and federal they had disagreement on it, so the U.S. Department of Education really disagreed with California that this document was all-inclusive. So what they were requiring us to do, if we accept those dollars, is we needed to add an addendum. So that is kind of a separate document that will be part of this process this evening to make sure that we are aligning all of our ESSA dollars with our state priorities and our district priorities. So what are the next steps with the Local Control Accountability Plan? Well, we're on about step 5 of this process. It's almost like a 9-month kind of birthing of the document per se. So we've got tonight's board meeting where this is public hearing, coming for information, and then it'll come back for approval on June 24th. What's important to know during this time is we've got copies on our website, we've got copies in the lobby, we've provided all sorts of different access so folks can provide feedback. They can provide it on cards, they can provide it through a Google form, which is on our website. It's available in English and in Spanish. And after it's approved, it can always come back for changes. We are in transition, and I think that's important to note that just as with our single plans for student achievement at the school sites, if there is a significant shift in priorities or funding or programs that we want to provide our students, we just go through the process of going through the advisory groups, bringing it back to the board for feedback, and we would be submitting it back to our county. The document is due to the county by June 30th, so we do need it approved because it is part of a two-step process. Approve the LCAP as well as our budget. Those go to the county, but again, we can always revise it. So where the community can find information on our LCAP, well, there is on the front page of the website, there should be a link there. When you click it, it'll take you to the LCAP page, which is under the Parents and Community heading. And then from there, you're going to see a page. Ooh, that's teeny tiny. So on this page, you're going to see copies of the document, again, in English and Spanish, the feedback links that you can click on in English and Spanish, and you can provide any or ask any questions, provide feedback. And then down below, you'll see prior presentations or copies of our prior LCAPs. So what I'd like to do is just thank the multiple departments, Mount Diablo, the fiscal department, the assistant SUPs, and the advocacy groups for assisting with the development of this document, because it is definitely a team effort. And so I am available for any questions.
I just have a comment. I was gonna, you know how challenged I've always been by this annual update format that you helped me understand better. So now I know how to read it, but I'm really excited. And there were a couple of data points that really I thought were quite impressive. It's on page 13. The first one is, this has to do with 11th grade EAP for ELA, 3 points. So the goal, if I'm reading this right, the goal was 20 points below level 3, and I now understand what level 3 means. And they actually got 3.9 points above level 3, so that's really amazing. That's great. And then just one other one, if I can find it quickly, but I marked it. So I find my mark. Oh, the other one's on page 15, and it's percentage of 9th grade students on track for graduation earning 55 credits or more, because we all know how critical that is for their success in high school. And 77.1% was the number, up from 74%. So that's also happy news, good news. So thank you. And I just want to say thank you to you, Jennifer, for all your leadership on this process. So other board members have questions?
I have a few comments. The good news or bad news is I read the whole thing, Jennifer. So, I don't know if that's good for you or bad for you, but on action 3, and you don't have to make note, write it down exactly, but the part where we were talking about healthy environments, and I kind of felt, and believe me, I'm the garden person, but
Which page are you on?
I'm on page 19, where we're talking about the actions and services, and it says connecting youth to the school garden programs as far as the healthy environment. And I just want to make sure if we're doing that, that we have some kind of evaluated data that we can actually show that that's happening. Garden's perfect in the next generation science standards, because we know we're doing that. And then is LCAP funding actually going for gardens?
For the NGSS and the gardens.
Right,
yes.
okay. That's why when it was in the health, that kind of, you can do it, but it takes a lot of documentation. And then on page 26, we talked about the increasing the Chromebooks, trying to get to 1-to-1. What is the life on those Chromebooks? Do you know? Kind of, sort of?
Kind of, sort of, I think it's a couple years.
Okay.
And I'm looking at Joe, he's throwing up some fingers at me. About 3.
So that's a constant cost, which is worth it. Okay, and then on page 44, we talk about the storefront concept that we talked about last year and the board voted on. So did that not happen this year, and we're looking at possibly doing that next year? Is that where we are on that? the monument for the kids that, trying to get the kids that have dropped out of school. It's listed here, your second bullet point, explore establishing a second reentry center for out of school.
Yes, that has not happened, and that there was some concern about renting a place when we have some possible spaces, so we have had the same actions occurring, both at the Gateway campus and then at other campuses as the person who does it travels. So it really was still a concern to pay for the rental of the storefront.
All the complications that come with
Yes.
And the extra staffing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so since I wasn't here, I actually had a question about what that is. Could you describe that in a little more detail?
So it's actually, could you mind if I chime in? It's actually part of a grant, part of a contract with the Workforce Development Board that Mount Diablo and most of our foster youth program, I think that department has had. You have to renew it every year, so it's can be considered soft money. And they get funded to serve youth for employment and educational opportunities, but in an employment context. So it was written in the very first year that we submitted the grant, and as Dr. Meyer said, when we got into it, it just seemed like there's some definite complications of renting space and staffing it, et cetera, et cetera. So
that would be run by the school district.
Right, as part of the contract with the Workforce Development Board.
That was the proposal.
Yeah.
And it primarily serves high school students who have already left the district, and so it's really kind of a retrieval process where you go out into the community and find those students who have left without completing and bring them back in, and also help give them job skills, resume building, etc. So we know we have different partners who provide that, and that we also have different locations as opposed to renting out an office.
And my last comment's probably more to the board than you, but I'm reading 160 about the importance of our community and school site councils. I personally think I would like to see the district going back to where the district trains the school site councils, because in comments that we get and emails that we get, it seems to be confusion about exactly how that whole makeup is and who makes the decisions, and the understanding that it's really driven by ed code, not by anything we make up. So I know back in the day, and Linda will remember, there used to be a big event and all the school site councils brought their representatives in the district train them, rather than leaving it up to one more thing for the principal to do.
And of late, that is not the only time I've heard that comment by one of your colleagues and yourself. So we did hear that, yes.
Yeah, I don't have the same level of history as you, but I've seen that confusion, and I think it would really be great for our school site councils to have the support.
And other than that, thank you for all the work you do on that.
I just real quickly also looked at what Joanne was looking at and wanted to point out some of our district-wide things. Our A through G graduation in the last 4 years has gone up 6%. And then our 9th grade, as you mentioned, has gone up 6%. And our percentage of students earning a 3 or above on an AP, soon to be also IB, has gone up 8%. So
really great.
Lots of good stuff, but the programs that are all in here, they lead to those final things. And it's really elementary, middle, high.
And although we want our graduation to be rate to be 100%, for that indicator to be in the green, that dashboard on that particular item, it seems to contradict the other areas that are yellow and orange, because it shows we are achieving success and improving in the graduation rate. So I think that's something to take to heart and be encouraged about. I did have one question, because I've been waiting. I had more than one. You know that. There is a call out on page 41 of the Visual and Performing Arts Plan, and I looked in my files and I don't have a copy of that. So I'm hoping that you could provide me with a copy of that.
It is in the works. It is drafty. It is something that was begun when we had a part-time kind of Vapatosa that was taking the lead on it, and now what we have is we refer to them as team captains. So they're almost leads for the high school visual arts department as well as performing arts. And so that team is taking a look at that information, and they are trying to pull it together into a very streamlined and aligned process. So it's something we're looking at things K through 12. And so it's also, we're not only looking at the middle and the high school, that was what was happening in the past, but also bringing in our arts magnet school. And so it's in the works. So to call it an actual plan, it might be more of a drafty, soon-to-be plan that's
So my
in the
memory
works.
wasn't failing me.
Your memory was not failing.
I was
No,
like, where is
no.
that?
No worries. No.
Because I was hung up on the word refined, so I presumed that it would be something that the board might be reviewing. Will it be a document that the board needs to approve? Because I know there have been some recent changes in legislation around the arts.
I
Find
think
out, huh?
we would need to find out, and we would need to kind of take a look to see what form and shape it's going to end up at. Right now, what we're trying to do is almost capture what are those activities that build from elementary, middle, and high. And so we're trying to create one of those for instrumental music, one for drama, one for chorus, visual or vocal music, one for visual arts. And so that's kind of where we've started, and we're building up from there. So more will be shared as we're working with our team captains.
So the one thing that I've noticed and I regret is that we can't call out and give credit to the PFCs and the PTAs that provide enrichment for our students, whether it's through assemblies or bringing in experiences. Most of the references around parent engagement seem to be, unless I missed it, around DLAC and the CAC committee and the PAC committee. And is it because we have to quantify it in a particular manner, or we don't take attendance at those meetings? Because we know, PTAs at least collect the volunteer hours that are contributed by volunteers annually. That report was just due May 15th. I'm just, is there some way that information could be quantified, or it may be just too cumbersome to do something like that? But I want to give a call out personally to all the groups that also support our schools in different manners, or in a different manner with assemblies, or bringing in speakers, or some of the high schools bring in musical experts to work with woodwinds or to work with brass instrument students. And so there's just a lot out there that's not captured.
I think that would be a great future board agenda item to kind of separate from the LCAP, have a presentation on the many supplementary things that are going on. Just a thought. And this is a public hearing.
I had one more question, if that's okay. On page 180, it talks about improved and better coordinated health services will be provided by adding a lead nurse to the school nurse and licensed vocational nurse team. Just wanted to hear more about that. Sounds exciting.
Well, that has happened. There is a lead nurse, and they do help coordinate that work. I don't have the specifics about, I don't have student services here.
Oh, so that's something that's already been done as opposed to a plan for next year?
Correct. No, it is something that has been put into place.
Okay, okay.
Sorry about that. And one thing I would like to highlight for the public is if you take a look at that same goal, you're going to see a mixture of LCFF supplemental dollars and Title I dollars. There was in the beginning the thought that LCFF supplemental dollars would be the only ones that you could kind of count towards improving services for English learners or foster youth or anything like that, but there's been clarification done, which is if you utilize other dollars, those are also counted. So they really want folks to maximize federal dollars as well as state local revenues in order to have a mixture of support and resources in order to make sure that you can support our most needy students.
Do we get to record the county health bands that visit our school sites in any way?
They're not in our particular budget,
I know they're
but
not.
those resources, if we mention them, we might be able to quantify them in some way. And that's a little bit of the trick. How do you quantify the improved and enriching service without tracking the dollars? And that's something that we've had some very interesting conversations with the different advocacy groups, because they understand that we can do that. But what are those examples where that really shows very clearly what we've done without adding different resources monetarily? But that is a resource that we should be able to count. So right now it is not something that's embedded. Might be something to think about in the future.
The one statistic would be, how many students did they treat during the course of a year? The challenge is, what was the benefit to the district? We all want to think that it's improved attendance because kids are in school because they feel better. So it's hard to verify all
It's tricky.
that, but like you said, it's the quantification.
Board, any other, this is a public hearing, so if anybody else has comments or input they'd like to provide, you have the opportunity to do that now. And if not, I will close the public hearing. So now we move on to 17.4. We have another public hearing on the proposed budget in 2019-20, and I believe we have a presentation for that as well.
I'd like to invite Rose Ramos and Mika Arbelide to the podium, and they have a brief presentation on the public hearing of the budget.
Good evening, President Durkee, board members, Dr. Meyer, and members of the public. I'm so sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. I'm fine, it's just the voice. But I will talk loud. And Mika's going to share the presentation with me as well. Tonight we are presenting to you the 2019-20 proposed budget for the coming year. And of course, this is based on the May revise, which was released in May. That is the governor's latest update for the state budget for the coming year, which sometimes has some changes compared to what he proposed in January. And but once the state actually adopts its budget, June 15th, we'll know what our actual factors are. But for now, all districts in the state of California have to just use the numbers that are provided in the May revise. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mika. She's going to go over the next few slides regarding details, and then I'll come back up.
Thank you, Rose. So, here. So next slide shows our dollars. This is for 1920. It's 100% implemented. So only increase that we're going to receive from the state is quota. And with January, we received 3.46% quota, and that's where we started. The budget development start in December. In January, we meet with everyone, and we were building the budget with 3.46. And May revision came, and it was reduced to 3.26. But on the other hand, STRS and the PERS rate was decreased, so it helped us a little bit. And to quickly go through this table, the funding we receive are different in TK through 3 and 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 12. It's all different rate. And ADA is, since we are declining ADA, it is based on the prior year ADA. So the we receive base dollar amount based on ADA, and we receive grade span adjustment for K3 and 9, 12. Then we receive the supplemental money based on the unduplicated count. And the total, we budgeting 281 million for 1920. And just to point out, the quota decreased 3.46 to 3.46 to 3.26, we lost about $540,000. And then the next slide shows the per ADA amount that we receive. This is average amount. Like I said, every grade level receive different dollar amount and duplicate count receive different amount. So we put all of them together, divided by the ADA, and this is what we get. And we are slightly increasing. And just to point out, 1% decline means about 3 million loss in our district. And so next slide shows the ending fund balance. So 17-18 is the actual. We had 57.5 million. This is a nice ending fund balance. This was because of the one-time money that we received. And this really helped us go through this year and future years. We are not going to receive the one-time anymore, but with this nice ending fund balance, we could plan the expenditure and improve the salary, and also the minimize the deficit spending that we are in. And so the ending fund balance in 18, 19, 19, 20, future years, of course, it will change. When we close the 18, 19 book, that will be in September. The number will change. But with all budget aligning, we are expecting little change, not like big change. And I would like to hand over to Rose.
Okay, these are the major changes from the January proposed budget to the May revised. The first one, we pretty much all know that LCFF gap 100% funding that remained in the state budget. And then Mika already talked about the cost of living adjustment decreased from 3.46 to 3.26, costing the district about $500,000. So that was not that great. But on the other positive side was that we did see some increases to the payment for districts towards their STRS and PERS. Now this is outside of Prop 98 by design, and it's one time for at the moment, as far as we know. So in January, the governor was proposing to pay down 17 to 17.10. He's revised that, and the May revised to 16.33. And following the May revise, we got some really good information. Was posted in the school services newsletters or their articles, that there's also the proposal to pay down a little bit of the PERS. Even though that does not make up a good chunk of our labor costs, nonetheless, it's significant for the district. It's about $800,000 should that actually happen. So that was positive. And then, of course, the federal special ed preschool local entitlement is also proposed to be discontinued, and that would cost the district about $500,000 in revenue loss. But then we recently got the article, things change quite regularly, that there may be a change in funding for special ed that would be very beneficial for the district. So we're just waiting to see. And this is typical. What happens after May revise until the state's adopted budget is actually enacted. There's a lot of negotiations and lots of changes. So what's in here today may change, and we'll bring back that information. So those are the proposed changes. And the next slide, Mika's going to talk about that because that's a really important one.
Just a quick question while you're on that one.
Absolutely.
Did you say a dollar amount of savings for sisters?
Oh, yes, I did. Sorry about that. It was 600,000. Yes. And for PERS, we're estimating about 800,000. That's reducing our expenses, so.
Thank you.
That would be very helpful. Okay, Mika.
So this one is numbers. So quota decreased and STRS decreased, and it decreased like 2-3 times. So it was real turmoil for us to put the budget together. This one is just to show the effect of STRS and PERS rate change. This is based on the 17-18 actuals, and if everything's the same, And if we only look at surge change and purge change, this is what you can see. I'm not gonna say all the dollar amount, but so 1920, the drop from 1819 for surge was 0.05%. And for purge, it was 0.868%. Both are very minimum, and this is really helping us to have the positive certification for out years. And the second column from the right shows the total increase, decrease, total increase in the benefit rate change. And the last column shows revenue increase in LCFF base. And if you only look at this, it seems like we have enough money to cover all these changes, but this is only looking at the surge and purge rate change. And we have to think about the health benefit cost increase and stepping column as well.
Okay, so we're at the tail end here. So moving forward, so the district has implemented multi-year budget solutions to decrease the deficit, of course, and maintain our positive certification. What are some of the things we've done? The proposed budget does include budget reductions proposed of $12.8 million. We have budget reductions planned for the 2 out years in the neighborhood of about $4 million, not exactly $2 million each, maybe 1.7 in 1 year, 1.3 in the other year. And of course, these are subject to change. It just depends. Right now, at this point in time, we are basing some of these solutions on the estimated ending fund balance. We haven't closed the books yet. So once that happens, we know exactly where we're going to land, how much we have to start the year. And the other thing we've done differently this year as well is that we implemented budget spending restrictions right around mid-year when we realized, okay, our COLA was probably not going to be as high. And we did need to start tightening our belt so in order to maintain the positive certification. So we plan to see some savings there. Some of the budget spending restrictions included, basic things like supplies and services, anything that was mandated and required, of course, that got, positions got filled as required, but anything that we could put off a little bit, all of that did help quite substantially. And the other thing that we are doing also is we continue to look at our enrollment decline, and we're just starting to project our services and staffing. How can we align that a lot better as we go out, because we're going to have to do that. Unfortunately, our enrollment is continuing to decline, however, not at the same rate. We had seen like 1.8 like maybe 4 years ago. It's kind of leveled off in the last few years down to 1.23. So we're projecting about a 1%. That may be a little risky, but last year it was only about a 1% decrease. So we're hopeful that that'll happen again. It just depends on how many students we keep and we attract. We do know we have charter schools in our area, and they are growing, and the population they're drawing from is from our students. And so we are measuring, carefully watching their population growth and tracking to see how much of that is our students, and the majority are coming from our students. So, it's just something we have to put out there and state. And so some of the risks in the budget included are the ongoing STRS reduction. We know that right now the governor is proposing to include a 0.5% reduction in STRS ongoing. Whether that'll survive or not remains to be seen. So right now we are all planning for that, and we're being very hopeful. The other thing is the state economy. We keep hearing about the recession and the impact on the state budget. So far so good, but I'm hearing it's slowing down, and the growth is slowing down, that is, and so that's going to have an impact on the state budget. And then, of course, I've already talked about declining enrollment as another risk. So we've, been able to, with these solutions and reductions and some of these one-time money from the state, been able to produce a budget that still maintains positive certification, but it is just going to be a very different few years going forward absent the one-time money. We are going to see not as big of a swing in the ending fund balance because we've tightened that up as well. And so, which is not a bad thing. We should be spending money in the current year funds that we do have. And so, having said that, we propose that the district's budget will continue to have a positive ending fund balance in this budget year and the 2 subsequent years to maintain that positive certification. So, in a nutshell, that's our proposed budget. There's a lot more information in there. So, if you have any questions for us, we'd be more than happy to. answer any questions.
I did have one, if the legislature and the budget, governor complete the budget process on June 15th, as I've seen in a couple of communications, when does the 45-day start for us to amend our budget if that's necessary? Would we have to amend the budget by August 1st, or would we have until August 15th to amend the budget?
It's typically after, and I'll defer to Larry, but typically in other districts, we've done it after the state adopts their budget, so it would be August 1st if it's material and nothing significant. But when it's the minor changes, when we bring back the unaudited actuals by September 15th, that's considered acceptable. So if it's a major revision, but Larry, do you know the specifics on the major?
I'm just curious, we're going to have a special meeting.
I don't think so. Okay. That's quite effective. Anyway, technically the state budget really isn't adopted till June 30th, but they have a deadline to send the budget to the governor by June 15th, which we're knocking on wood that they're going to do. But technically it's June 30th, so 45 days is actually August 15th. And you do have a meeting on August 12th.
Great. Well, thank you for all your hard, tedious work on this process, so we appreciate it.
I do have a question, sorry. So just trying to get some clarification for the community at large here to understand what's happening. In our second interim report, you showed target budget reductions of 12 million in 2019-20, and then 7.7 million in 2020-2021. And now it looks like you're saying 12.8 million for the coming year, and then 4 million over the next 2 years. So it looks like our belt tightening has helped a little bit. But when we talk about 12 million in reduction, the other thing that I noticed in the budget summary is the decrease of FTE, which is people, right? Full-time equivalent. So I'm just trying to understand how many people we're talking about here. So in the in the second interim report, under 2018-19, the assumption is district-wide FTE is 3,077. I don't know if that's actual or if that was estimated at the time. But then in the new budget here, we have 2019 to 20. Our proposed is 2,942 for 1920, and then 2,922 for the next year, and then 2,910. That seems significantly smaller than what we had as the FTE numbers in the second interim, which were 3,009 and then 2,985. So can you just, in layman's terms, maybe try to explain what does that actually mean, the number of FTE that we're planning to reduce, and what that could potentially look like?
And just to answer your first question about why the proposed solution target number changes on a variety of things. One is as the governor starts to release information about what he's projecting to give us, of course that has an impact on our budget district-wide. So it turned out to be a little favorable, so that did help. And then we did get some additional state dollars for specific programs, so that was able to fund some of the summer school and some other programs. So those kinds of things that change throughout the year. Now, as far as the FTE is concerned, we've talked about that in past meetings, that we know that as enrollment declines, naturally your staffing should decline as well. So in this last year, we started to do the analysis of our enrollment relative to our staffing, and did have an opportunity to start to right-size that. It doesn't happen neatly or, is exactly to the enrollment, because, students don't come in neat little packages that way. So that's reflected in that enrollment, in the FTE decline. We know that when we were calculating our numbers, it was roughly about 80 FTE that we were overstaffed based on our enrollment numbers. And so we were able to take advantage of reducing staffing this year in preparation for next year. And we started working on that pretty early in November as we looked at our enrollment. we were already over our FTE limit given our enrollment in the prior year. But this year, we really just started to nail down and reducing where we could. We did issue a mini layoff, and then we had attrition, and we had retirements and resignations. So all that together did help quite a bit. And so what you see in the out years is we also are projecting our enrollment decline, and then we're aligning our staffing to that. So we're assuming that we're going to be able to continue to reduce staffing to match enrollment.
So from the parents' perspective, that just, parents and students that just experienced that, recent layoff that just happened, was that enough to save the 12 million that we need to save, or are we talking about another round potentially of layoffs in the next year to accomplish these goals?
The recent layoff was to address the current 12.8 million. Next year, we'll see where enrollment lands again. We base our enrollment numbers on our December count. That's the highest count you have for the district at the time. It's on average, all districts. After January, of course, that declines. So we want to be very conservative and thoughtful in making sure we're not, trying to reduce too much. So right now, based on the percentages that we have, we are just estimating another decrease for the second. To answer your question, we may see another round, depending on where that number lands. But yeah, what we issued right now, that layoff this year, that is not for future years. That was for the 12, but it carries over, of course. That was to address the $12.8 million shortfall. Did that answer?
For 1920?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And if my memory serves me right, those weren't necessarily whole positions, right?
Right.
It could have been part-time person, but when you put it all together, it equals X amount of FTEs.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so this was also a public hearing. If there's any other comments?
You need the card?
Public hearing, you don't even need a card.
Well, that's why I was asking. Good evening, y'all. My name is Dan Reynolds. I am the father of 2 students in our district, as well as a teacher in our district for 15 years. As I looked at the PowerPoint that we got and tried to mesh it with numbers in the budget that you had in the back, some things jumped out at me. The first of which was that y'all are projecting a declining enrollment of 337 students between this year and next year, which is the largest decline in the last 6 years, larger than any of the numbers that I can find online. I'm curious to know why you think next year's enrollment is going to go down that much, considering that historically it hasn't. Then when I got to the slide that talked about changes in the budget, and it talked about the STRS rates, one thing jumped out at me. The governor's May budget revise didn't put the STRS rate at 16.33, it put it at 16.7. Then there was a subcommittee that suggested going lower to 16.33. So that's not 100% accurate, but if it ends up being that the district has to pay at a lower level, that's fine because it saves the district dollars and it frees up those dollars in the budget. When I looked at the slide that talked about STRS and PERS employer increases, one of the things that was said in the presentation was if everything was the same based on numbers that were 2 or 3 or more years old, nothing is the same because you don't have the same people and they don't cost you the same. So the idea that between this year and next year your STRS costs would go up by $391,000 is wrong. When we look in the budget, y'all are projecting that your certificated salaries are going to go down from a total of $162 million this year to $156 million next year. If you're paying 16.28% on $162 million, and if you're paying 16.33% on $156 million, you're going to be spending more than $1.5 million less on your STRS next year than you are this year. So the idea that STRS is going to cost you $391,000 more next year is wrong in the opposite direction of about $2 million. And so I am curious to know why we're presenting the board with numbers that say your STRS is going to cost you more when you've cut people from your employment, specifically talking about certificated layoffs, which was called a mini layoff. But if we look at the numbers that are suggested in your budget of more than 1,700 people this year and less than 16, and in the 1,600s next year, it's not a mini layoff when you consider that there are dozens of people who lost their jobs. In the end, y'all are going to have lower certificated salary rates, which means you're going to end up having a lower STRS contribution. There's going to be less money going from the district's budget to STRS, not more. So these numbers you looked at tonight are not accurate. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, that will close the public hearing.
Back to adoption next.
Yeah, it's on the next, right. Come back to the next meeting for adoption. Okay, we are now on 17.5, public hearing and composition of trustee areas by trustee area elections. This is on for information and action.
President Durkee, Larry Schenke, your general counsel. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Larry Fertshaw from Cooperative Strategies. He is a gentleman who's known as a demographer, which is based on the Greek word for people. So he's here to help us divide up the people. Just as you know from the postings we've had in the past and the two discussions we've had at recent board meetings, the board is embarking on changing the nature of its board elections from at-large to by district. As part of that process, and probably the most important person in that process is Mr. Fertshaw. We have a public hearing tonight. We have a public hearing on the 24th, and the purpose of these public hearings is to simply give you an idea of what's going to happen over the next 3 months or so. And Mr. Fertshaw has a short presentation. Then we'll have a public hearing. There's a number of people here. You know Mr. Rafferty, you've met him before. I just want to look before we go too far into this hearing that he and I have talked tonight, and we've had some discussions, and the next public hearings after this may change, but we want to make sure that all the public is aware and can provide input before you all make your decisions, which then get referred to the county committee. So with that, I'll let Mr. Fertshaw do a presentation, and then we'll have our first public hearing.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Schenke. See if this is on okay. President Durkee, members of the board, Superintendent Meyer. I have a brief presentation that's really just meant to kind of set up for the public hearing and give folks in the audience an idea of what kind of input is helpful as we embark on this process. So I'll be brief. You've heard about the transition process, moving from the at-large to the by-area method of election, which is the only one that is really a safe harbor under the California Voting Rights Act, which I'm sure Mr. Schenke has briefed you on substantially, dealing with at-large elections, potentially impairing the ability of members of protected classes to influence the outcome of an election, and the movement to the by-trustee area method of election being that safe harbor under the California Voting Rights Act. This calendar, other than indicating that you'll see a lot of me over the next couple of months, it is really just an outline of what steps are needed. We have the 2 pre-map public hearings tonight and 2 weeks from now, and there may be some changes, as I understand, based on discussions to extend this process out a little bit longer. But after those 2 pre-map public hearings, taking the feedback from the board and the community, will develop some scenarios that address some of the input that we've received, and share those at a series of community input meetings that will occur throughout the district over the course of several nights, and one during the day we've talked about as well, so that people have various chances to come and review the maps, ask questions, provide feedback. Then we would come back to the board with at least two public hearings on those scenarios. Give folks a chance to speak directly to the board on the scenarios that are provided. All the maps will go on the district's website, so people will have a chance there. There'll be opportunities if people can't make it to meetings to submit their comments electronically as well. But I won't go into detail on the dates because those are subject to change. I will highlight at the next public hearing, or the next board meeting, we'll also hold a public hearing on the waiver application, and that's the waiver going to the State Board of Education asking to waive the requirement to hold an election on the change. So that will come to you for a public hearing the next board meeting, with the opportunity to potentially vote on the waiver application at that meeting, or if not, at a subsequent board meeting. So kind of the lay of the land on the timeline there. So as we go through this process, what are we considering as we draw trustee areas? The first and foremost is that they have to be roughly equal in terms of total population. We're allowed a variance of up to 10% between the largest and smallest areas, and we'll talk a little bit more about the numbers shortly. But that variance allows us to not go through the middle of neighborhoods, to try to stay on major roads or other logical geographic boundaries. So that's one of the things that we use that 10% for. We can also use it to account for areas of growth or decline. Again, we're using 2010 census data as the last count of people. So to the extent we are aware that areas have grown since then or declined since then, we could use that 10% variance as well. The areas have to be drawn to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, and that means that we can't do anything in this process to impair members of protected classes from being able to influence the elections. The example we like to give is if you have an area of a concentrated protected class in one part of the district, and you went ahead and carved that up into 3 different voting areas, severely reducing their ability to influence the elections, that would be a very clear violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act, and so that's something that we do. This is supposed to be a race-neutral process, but at the same time, we can't be ignoring race as well, so it is a consideration. The areas have to be contiguous, so it can't start in Walnut Creek, have half of a trustee area and then pick up at Bay Point the other half. They have to be contiguous. The areas have to be as compact as possible. We have to look at communities of interest. I think that's one of the things we'll want to hear from the community. As an outsider, I want to know what those communities of interest are and what areas should be kept together and what areas may not want to be kept together in these voting areas. Looking at man-made natural geographic boundaries, want these areas to be logical so people understand where these areas are. Incumbency is an allowable consideration, but not a primary consideration. And then other considerations you may want to have in mind are school sites, school attendance boundaries. Some districts like to say that we'd like for each attendance boundary, maybe at the high school level, to be served by multiple trustee areas, so it doesn't have that feeling of one trustee in charge of one high school area. Of course, after this transition, each board member is still fiduciarily responsible to the district as a whole. It takes all board members to make decisions about everything. So even though you are going to this method of election, it doesn't change that each board member is still responsible for the whole district. In terms of the total population, as of the 2010 census, 250,371 residents. Everybody who lived within the district from a day old to 120, regardless of whether they could vote in the district. So that means 5 roughly equal voting areas of 50,064 people, roughly. You can see the ethnic breakdown of the total population, just under 25% Latino, just under 55% white. The next largest group being Asian American at 12.25. The next numbers over look at 18 and over, so if everybody was a citizen and could register to vote, that would be your universe of potential voters there. So you can see that drops down the Latino percentage just about by 3 percentage points, increases the white percentage by about 4 percentage points there. So you can see those differences there. The map to the left just indicates the different jurisdictions that are in your school boundaries, and so we may be looking at using those jurisdictional lines. That could be criteria or feedback that we get from the board or from the public to look at trying to keep city lines through this process, or conversely, don't do that.
It's capital 6 cities.
The other thing that we highlight is citizen voting age population. So this is an estimate of folks who are 18 and over and citizens of the United States. It is based on a rolling 5-year average compiled by the Census Bureau, and so this represents 2013 to 2017 data. So this is a little bit more refined information in terms of who is your potential eligible voters. So here we can see the Latino percentage at 16.38, the white percentage at 62.5, and the Asian American percentage at 12.24%. We highlight on the right side, since it is the largest of the protected classes, the Latino citizen voting age population. So those funny shapes that look like various Tetris figures are the census blocks, and they're color-coded to represent the concentration of Latino citizen voting age population. So the percentage of Latino citizens of voting age population in each of those census blocks. The darker the color indicating a higher concentration. So you can see a little bit in the Bay Point area, a higher concentration of Latino citizen voting age population, as well as right at the 680/4 corridor, you can see a little bit of an increased population as well. So we'll look at those areas to see, is it possible to create areas of increased influence for protected classes within the district. We'll do the same thing for the Asian American population and African American population as well, to see what increased influences that they can be provided kind of in the spirit of the California Voting Rights Act. We can also look at other demographic data. We can look at household income as we're doing this process, so that we can see not just ethnically but socioeconomically what do these areas look like as well. So the question that we're looking to get an answer, or at least some input on, is how should these lines be drawn as we go through this process? What types of feedback is helpful to hear is, I think that this neighborhood or that neighborhood, this community or that community should be together or should not be together, because it makes for better representation. That I think certain dividing lines, what are dividing lines that people think are logical within the community, so that I can take those and use those through this process. So we just highlighted, for example, do we want to use the freeways, try to use those as dividing lines? Are there other major roads, Clayton Road, Monument Boulevard, all those kinds of things? Do those make sense as dividing areas, or or does it make sense to have there's a community along a particular road, and so don't use that as a dividing line, because on both sides of a major road they may be very similar, and that shouldn't be used as a dividing line. So that's helpful to hear through this process. What community should be in an area. Each middle, elementary, high school boundary should be in a single trustee area or multiple trustee areas. Those kinds of things are just kind of what we're looking to hear both from the board and the public through these two pre-map public hearings. I will say that in doing these, it's often hard to say what you want to see in these maps. You don't have the numbers to say, well, this would make a logical area, because you don't know if that adds up to 50,064 people. But it is helpful to give a little bit of a local perspective as we go through this process. And then once you start seeing maps, you can say what you like and you don't like a little bit better. It's a little bit harder in the abstract to say what you would like to see in these maps. So I completely understand that, but with that, happy to take any questions now, or if you want to open it up for the public hearing.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for you or for Larry, but isn't it possible to do a combination of at-large and districts as well? So instead of having 5 different areas, you could divide the district in 3, so you have 3 area representatives and 2 remain at large.
I'm going to yield to the other Larry on that.
Okay.
That's something I have to think about. I do know that cities do that because they have mayor-council forms. For example, the city of Santa Clara, who just paid $3.1 million to an attorney in their dispute, they do 6 council members area, and then the mayor is elected at large. I don't believe, I'd have to look at this, I don't think the Ed Code provides for that.
Because I went to a session at CSBA, not this last year, the year before, and they talked about that. Now, it could have been a city person up there, but I was under the impression it was a school district that had done that.
I'm going to be perfectly candid with you. I've never represented the district that was formed like that. And I've represented about 300 districts in my career, so I don't I can look at it, but I have a feeling that Mr. Rafferty may have a comment about that. Because once again, the purpose of the California Voting Rights Act is to make representation more local, and if you remain as an at-large, if there's an at-large board member in there that still may not meet the requirements, I don't know, we'll have to research that for you. I mean, as far as, well, that's the San Diego model, but that's a charter, it's a district under a charter city that created that process where the board members live in an area and they run primaries, but then they run at large at the end. And I do know personally that that's under attack now because of the at-large function in there. But the complication with San Diego Unified is it's under a charter city. It's one of those really, Santa Monica's like that too. It's a very strange process. So that's unusual, and it came from the fact that it was in a charter city.
So I think, I'll just share for me personally, a couple of conversations, it's just like the nuances and the complexity of this keep growing in my head, you know, so I think the idea that, you know, that there were two terms you had shared, packing and stacking.
Patching and cracking.
Packing and cracking.
Those are lawyers' shorthand.
Yeah, so, I mean, I that's just been locked in my brain ever since I heard that, trying, you know, because it's not something I would have thought about, and so the point is for the protected, let's say a protected class, to make sure they have the ability to elect, and so that's where the smaller area, close area, you know, idea comes into being. And I know in concept, I mean, this is the part that kind of gets to me, is that it's ensuring that it's still a governance team that has the full district's interest, you know, at heart. And so, you know, how do you ensure that as well? So, you know, to the degree that unintended consequences, you end up with a lot of divisiveness, then, you know, again, I guess, you know, for me, education's kind of a different animal all the way around, so I have a lot of other kind of issues about that. But going back to, let's say, you know, I can picture in our geography here that there would be areas where there'd be, you know, higher number of a protected class, and so logically you would draw lines, you know, to, so that group would have more ability to elect a representative for that area, right, for that district area. The problem is it's 1 of 5 votes, you know, if you're really getting down to voting. Now, representation is speaking up and advocate, you know, all of that, which again, I like to think, well, do that, but I understand the concept. So, but when it comes down to voting, you know, that's the cracking is the other way. And that could be packing, right? That's where you make sure, because then people can get, you know, someone they believe in and, you know, want to have represent them elected. So I get that, but then again, you know, is really only 1 voice out of 5, is that counterproductive? And so then the other was the cracking, which is trying in such a way that people are represented across all 5 districts, but maybe they won't, there'll be a smaller percentage in that district, and so then maybe they lose. So, I mean, I'm just.
I mean, one could argue that that's what's happening in the at-large situation. That,
yeah.
That you are diluting these folks that you see, that represent these numbers. That's the theory behind the California Voting Rights Act. So that's.
It's interesting to see that one of the choices that you mentioned was not necessarily aligning with like high school, you know, feeder patterns. You could mix and have 1 representative in overlapping areas. It's something to consider. Yeah. Do we open a public hearing then to be able to hear?
Public hearing is open.
Oh, it is open. Okay.
Well, yeah, he makes his presentation. There'll be a number of folks, I understand.
Yeah, we have comments.
And remember, we do have another hearing 2 weeks from tonight. And also, Mr. Furchaw and I are available to receive comments, both. I have a number of voicemails already, and Mr. Mr. Kershaw is available and all this information is posted. So folks should understand, you don't necessarily have to come here, as Mr. Kershaw indicated. You can provide us the information and we'll certainly consider it. It's very important that your community and your public be engaged in this process, because it is a democracy, and that's, once again, the word demos. There it is again, the Greek word for the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll just again share that to me, my involvement is really important, that we do it with integrity, that we do it right. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what meets the spirit of the law, what we're trying to do. So thank you. And I think we're having these conversations because, again, on the surface it may think of it a certain way, but I think the more we think about it, I worry about unintended consequences. I really do. So I think for everyone to really think about it and listen to the conversation. So it's okay. So we'll officially. Did you want to say something?
I just thought.
I'm glad to see the list of possible considerations for the areas. The other thing, and I know I've said this before, is that I hope that we will also be looking at precinct areas, because one of the comments I've received from folks in Martinez is that they regret having to, they feel like they've been forced to vote by mail because of the situation that was created there, because the precincts were divided so greatly between the city's districting and the school district's districting. And so I'm just hopeful that you'll be able to work with our county elections department and consider some of the precinct areas so that we're not bifurcating all of the precincts to the point that we have to go to vote by mail. I know there's a lot of people that want vote by mail, but I know there are people in my community that still like to vote at the polls.
I live in Napa County. There is no such thing as a poll anymore.
I know.
But still,
It's coming. I hate to say that,
not
but
necessarily complicated to
But
cut
we don't
across
have to be
precincts.
first.
And maybe just a little bit of background as to why that can happen is we're building everything based on census blocks. So think
Right.
of those as the Lego blocks that your kids use, and those are the people associated with them. The county registrar of voters, their precincts don't necessarily follow those census blocks. And that can be the challenge as we're going through this process. And we've seen that in a number of instances, both in this county and others, where their precincts are aligned a certain way because that's what works for voting, but it doesn't necessarily work for creating the voting areas that go into a smaller subdivision than Congress or the Assembly or the State Senate.
So you're the first person that has talked about census blocks versus precincts. And when we look at our precincts, some of us have walked precincts for over 30 years now. We're familiar with those lines. We kind of can see the original history of a particular community and how different pieces have been included in it. And so I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Okay, so the public comment. So we'll go to the cards that we have here. We'll start with William Collin. You're waiting patiently.
Yes. Good evening, members of the board. First, I want to thank you for opening this space for the community to come and to speak. However, I feel like this should be, you were talking about community engagement, and this session was not public at all. It was just on the website, and I think that for the community should have been more public and create more visibility, because these decisions, they are so important. So talking about engaging the community, I see a lack of communication. I know that for several events, like, you have a way to communicate to parents, to different schools, and it kind of like made me hesitate on the lack of transparency of this, because like, I asked several parents. I'm a member of a PTA too in my own homes, and I never got any information about this. So that's first. The other thing that about this situation is to take into consideration, I know that there's going to be like public comment for this, but take into consideration like a vulnerable communities, like communities of color and immigrant communities. Let's think also about newcomers. Like we know that we are facing a lot of people that they are coming from different Latin American countries, but not only that, like they are coming from all over the world. So we need to be mindful on those folks, and also the displacement caused by housing situation that is been happening. So we cannot compare or to join Walnut Creek and Bay Point. Like there is no fair. It's not fair to run for one council, one member of the board with different communities. Like it's not really expressing, and I cannot picture a member there that can reflect like the needs of my community, right? So we really want to have like more representation on the board, and this is a good opportunity to have more inclusivity and more and diverse members. But let's think about those divisions, like not making like that narrow to benefit some privileged communities, and let's be more inclusive. So I will suggest only to make those public comments when parents are around. I know that those comments are going to happen during the break time, and it's really hard to engage community. We are just a few parents here that we hear about that, but how about the rest of the community? This is so important, so consider to make it more visible and to get more community and to make it when they are around, just to trust and to create that community engagement. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We can respond, right?
Sure.
We agree with you, and if we had started this process ourselves, we would have rolled it out way ahead of time. You'd have heard about it first before we move forward, but this is a process that I guess it's a lawsuit. We're basically being told if we don't do this, we would be sued, and we're gonna do it. But just to answer your question, why it seems like it's all at the last minute, it's because we're trying to meet a deadline that by law we have to meet. But we agree with you, we want as much community input, and we want it to be as fair and as with as much integrity as we can do it.
If there's
So,
some
but we
other
appreciate
method-
you coming down.
If there's some other method or some other group of people that we should be sending information to, please provide the information to us.
Sure, that would be great. Just to clarify that point, is because I saw the timeline and I know that the decision happened May, it's May 13th, so it's been like almost a month. So there was plenty of time to like engage more community. Just making sure. I know that about the process, but yeah.
Thank you.
Blanca Cohen?
Good evening. My name is Blanca Colin. I am a volunteer at Mera Home School for 14 years already. And then I'm a PTA member. I live in Concord community too. I work with my community. So I'm going to speak in my own language because I feel better doing that in Spanish. Y estoy aquí esta noche porque me sorprendió, como dijo William, de último momento saber que el día de hoy se iba a tratar un tema como este, de divisiones tan difícil.
I'm here tonight because I was really surprised to know that last minute it was about to talk, this night you are going to talk about this important issue about divisions in this district.
Me habría gustado mucho que con anticipación se hubiese hecho público este tema y sobre todo que fuera el tiempo en que los alumnos no están de vacaciones, pues la escuela es el mejor medio para que los padres nos enteremos de lo que pasa en nuestro distrito escolar.
I would like to get to know this in anticipation and to make it public, this topic, but during the school time where the students, they are not on a break, because the schools is the best way to average the parents, and we just know about this, and that's the only best place to get to know what is happening with the school district.
Y yo solamente quisiera pedir a ustedes con todo respeto que ya que contamos a lo largo de este distrito con comunidades variadas, comunidades diversas, con diferentes tipos de necesidades y características, que la división si se da que cada sección quede realmente representada por la persona que realmente tenga las características, que hagan empatía y que se identifiquen con las características de la comunidad estudiantil a la que van a representar, con el objetivo de que este trabajo que hoy se está haciendo realmente sea efectivo para el beneficio de los estudiantes.
I just want to ask you for one thing, with all my respect, because we have a lot of diverse communities and different kind of needs and characteristics. And just if this is going to happen, this division is going to happen, please make sure that each representative reflects all these communities and those particular characteristics with empathy, and that identifies with all the characteristics of the student community that they are going to represent, with the objective that this is what that the topic that you are working on right now is going to be effective for the benefit of the students.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Dave Thompson.
Good evening, board and superintendent and audience. So my name is Dave Thompson. I work at Monument Impact, an organization that's been in the Monument Corridor for about 20 years, and we work with Latinos and other immigrants and refugees in the community. Also work in Bay Point and worked with a couple of you on that. So part of the process, right, in this is including engaging the community, as we've talked about, and the people that you represent. And so according to the timeline that was published, as was mentioned, the board decided on that timeline, May 13th, and today is the first of two pre-rough drafts, I guess you could say, of demographer maps, two hearings that are happening. The notice on the district website wasn't put up until June 5th. 5 days before today, and 15 to 20 days after your decision, right? So there's plenty of time. There could have been much more advanced warning that this was happening. We only found out of it because one of our staff, William, was actually on the website for some other reason and came across it. Otherwise, we had no idea that this was happening. We understand that the district has ways of implementing engagement or putting out announcements like this, telephone calls, messaging systems, or the district my child's in has a parent talk system, site councils, PTAs, right? There's a number of ways that the message could have gotten out. And what we've heard from parents, staff, teachers, that no one knows about this, and I wonder if we were to pull the room, probably a lot of people left probably knew about it, but how many people that were in this room tonight knew about it? Folks behind us didn't know about it until they saw the agenda. So definitely a lot of outreach is needed. So to that end, I would urge you to add another meeting besides that's prior to the draft maps being put out, so that you have two more meetings where you can have some more engagement. And as was said by my colleagues, that be done during the school year. And my understanding from Mr. Rafferty, having spoken to him earlier, is that there is a potential for extension if there's a true engagement happening, right? If it's an extension just to hold off, then that's probably less likely. But if there's this expressed desire to engage the community, and I know some of you, and that's important, that making this process go slow is valuable. There's a great article about white supremacy and how that builds in organizations, and really can think about like how systems and institutions can keep people out, and oftentimes rushing processes is like that first way that happens, right? And so community engagement, the DEMOS part that Mr. Schenke brought up, right, takes time. The other part that was interesting, actually, it was really helpful to see the demographer bring up the data and look at the data that they're using. And I noticed that in the census data, 2010 data, that about 25% of the voting population is Latino. According to your district website, 46% of your student body is Latino.
That's correct.
and over 50% of the student body are people of color. And so that's a much different picture than what the demographer is showing. And so I hope that you take that into consideration and provide direction that would account for student data when you district boundaries are met. And we know that you have great feeder data and all this student population data, so certainly that can be taken into account when you draw maps. And then finally, I think given the breadth from Bay Point to Walnut Creek to Pleasant Hill to the Monument Corridor, that you consider 7 seats as a potential way of dealing with this incredibly diverse population. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I can, I want to make sure that folks understand. First of all, as Ms. Mason has pointed out, and Mr. Rafferty and I have spoken about, we're under a statutory timeline process. However, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Rafferty, but I can say I've had discussions with him, and he agrees with what you have told me, is that we, as the gentleman has just indicated, we do need more community input. Just because of the nature of the beast, for lack of a better term, school districts pretty much shut down after graduation and they fire back up before the first part of school. And he and I have discussed about an extension where we would set up some meetings community input meetings in late August, early September, and the board would not have its, what I call its second set of public hearings on maps until September. So everybody will be back for vacation. Everybody will have a chance to look. We have not finished that discussion yet, but which is why Mr. Furchaw indicated that those timelines will change. And also, anybody listening tonight, anybody in the audience, if you want to email me or email Mr. Furchaw or email the superintendent or her assistant, if we have other places where we can share information, we'd be happy to do that. We have put it out to the school sites, which, because of the timing, it's not great because school is over. Okay, we understand that. But we did what we could. We're communicating with other committees, other groups of people. We will continue to do that. We have issued media advisories. We've notified the cities and the county. And if there's any other group, we're discussing about talking with the faith-based community and see if there's something that they could do for us. We haven't resolved that yet. But I think it's important, and I agree 100% with the comments, we need to make sure this gets done in a reasonable, rational way with public input. Now, obviously, Mr. Rafferty and his folks, his perspective, what I call perspective plans, because that's what the statute calls them, want some closure at some point. Plus, we have to count back from November 2020. Statute says we have to have everything in place before May of 2020. Well, we certainly want it before then, because there are a lot of other agencies that have to respond to this. The county committee, the state board, registrar of voters, and the county of Contra Costa. So we are not going to rush through this, but Mr. Rafferty has to help us with that.
Can I ask you a question, Ben?
Sure.
So it's interesting to me to think about, using the census, 2010 census data. Is there ever a practice of using, as was talked about, our own data?
I think Larry's the expert on that. My answer would be probably not, because I'll let him answer it.
Okay.
We could certainly put in student information as a supplemental data to see, in this particular area, how many students are there and what is the breakdown of those, socioeconomically or ethnicity-wise. But the law does require that it be based on population divisions, not based on the number of students. If we did it based on the number of students, you probably would have radically different number of voters or eligible voters that way. So we do have to do it based on total population as our numerator in that equation. And then the 2010 census is just the most recent actual count of people.
Yeah, and that was the only thing that's appealing, is our data is more recent. That's what you said, so.
And is it based on
Clearly they
the
don't match.
voting age population or total population?
It's based on the total population.
Okay. And then you had showed other data that is more recent, that's 2013 to 2017.
Yeah, the
Were you able
citizen
to-
voting age population data. So again, that will inform us in terms of, are we able to create areas of increased influence for members of protected classes? Because, you know, we have, when you look at voter data itself, you know, actual voter registration, the only way to infer people's ethnicity is by either basically by their last name. That's really the only way, or statistical data to figure out what their ethnicities might be, versus the census, which actually asks people what their ethnicity is. And so that's why we use the citizen voting age population data to inform our potential, you know, increased influence areas for protected classes.
Great, thank you. We have Maria Ramos.
Buenas noches, miembros del consejo que están aquí. Mi nombre es Dolores Ramos y pues sí, primero que nada quiero darles las gracias y gracias al señor Larry por tocar este punto tan importante. Yo venía muy preocupada porque yo vengo en representación de la escuela Wren Avenue.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dolores Ramos. First of all, I want to thank you all, and especially Mr. I cannot pronounce his last name, Larry. Yes,
That's fine.
Because I'm here representing the school, Wren Avenue.
Sí, bueno, como podrán ver, bueno, pues solamente estamos representando ahorita solo 2 escuelas, entonces sí sería muy importante que vinieran a participar más escuelas del distrito para poder pues tocar todos los puntos posibles, ya que cada persona cuenta.
As you can see, tonight there are only 2 schools representing here, but it would be ideal to have all the schools be represented here, because we need to take everyone into consideration.
Y bueno, pues solamente de verdad le quiero dar un aplauso al Señor por tocar este punto de tener que esperar para poder hacerlas juntas. Y pues solo también quiero que tomen en consideración que sean personas que estén viviendo en esta comunidad para poder conservar primero también los trabajos, para poder también tener más acceso, que ellos estén realmente involucrados con nosotros como padres. Y pues muchas gracias. Buenas noches.
And I really appreciate your comments, and I just want to mention that take into consideration that people that needs to be present at those meetings should be people who lives in this school district, especially like worker parents, and in trying to include as much community as possible. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, Scott Rafford.
Well, I'm not going to be here for the next meeting, so, and I think I have a number of things to reassure some of the issues that come up, so maybe you'll ask me some questions and give me an extra minute or two, and I'll try to talk fast. But it's all good. I mean, first of all, let me reassure that my only reservation about an extension is making sure that we really get this engagement. Much as it would be convenient for me, it just can't happen in the middle of summer. I think the idea of having different locations and having a day or two of Ms. Furchow's time moving around the district, I think is phenomenal. But it's not going to work in the middle of summer. So that's going to dictate the time deadline. Don't worry about that. Secondly, you had some concerns. In terms of a hybrid, I think it's a good idea, and I keep pushing it. And because I worry about, there could be the 2 most brilliant school board members, and they happen to live next door to each other. So why not have an at-large seat? Every single time, the district lawyer comes back and says, but it doesn't give us a safe harbor, and under the California law, it does not. So I know San Leandro has it. I do think there are a couple more in Southern California. There are 2 cities, Oakland and Downey, that have a mayor, which is an exception in the statute. The mayor is not is immune from this. But they also have an extra at-large person, Oakland and Downey. But lawyers don't Your lawyers will not like that. So, but I think it's
Well,
good.
I've had a client ask me to look into it, and we'll certainly look into it, Scott.
Thank you for recognizing my brilliance, I appreciate it.
Precincts. So districts determine precincts, not the other way around. And I had some disagreements last time with the registrar about that, and it impaired the quality of the district we had in Concord. And you know, he was under a lot of pressure. He made clear for 2020 he's gonna do it right. However, if we have trivial differences and we make up a bunch of different, you know, where there are 200 people who have a particular type of ballot because nobody paid attention to what everybody else was doing, then there could be mail precincts. He's entitled to do that. I hope that he'll be a little bit more understanding as we move away from Martinez and are farther away from his office, which did kind of make things a little easier. No, we have to look for that. So we have to look where the boundaries go and try to avoid trivial differences. But you're different, your communities of interest are different, and that needs to be respected by the registrar, and he's committed to do that. So, and I have an apology to make, but I did not notice until earlier today that my, I try not to call it a mailer, it's really a petitioner. I don't like being a prospective plaintiff. It's really a petition to comply with the law, but it wasn't on your website. It usually is, I thought it was. So.
That was my mistake.
Yeah, so no, it was my mistake not to catch it. Also, I owe the community apology. It should be in Spanish, so I will undertake to translate. So, so that's just part of an explanation. This has been out there since March, and you'd have gotten it earlier, but I really researched on them because I knew there was going to be some controversy. Now, let's just simplify what's going on here. There's the federal law and the state law, and so this has two different kind of modes. One is it's a kinder, gentler way of complying with the federal law if you have to, like San Ramon Valley or West Contra Costa, because they have minority districts. I can tell you from absolute certainty, you do not. So if we started in your area and picked out the block groups with the highest concentration of Latinos, we'd get to around 15,000 that would have a majority of Latinos at the eligible voter level. So unless you're going to 15 members, which the Ed Code won't let you do, you're not going to get the majority. So we're looking at what you call influence districts. And we're looking at crossover districts. So there's probably an alliance between Latinos and African Americans, which is good, because guess what? African Americans have fewer under 18, there are more citizens than white people, and they actually vote slightly at slightly higher levels than white people in this county. So that's good. Asian community is 15%, falls off a little in terms of voters, and they're a little more ambivalent as to where they fit in this. But so that's the spirit of the act, is to create less than majority districts. And I think one way of looking at the communities of interest is when you talk about the relevance of schools, you can't give everybody a trustee, and you can't follow those boundaries exactly and still have population quality. But think about what schools are disadvantaged. And again, I'm looking at you, because Bay Point, yeah, there's going to be, give those a voice, a unique voice. It doesn't have to be a Latino voice or a black voice. It's not about the candidates or the incumbents or their skin color. It's about being a voice for that community. We're very good at that in this county, getting over this, that is, they have special needs, and they need to have an equal opportunity to have a representative. So, so the real magic of this is that, think about being in school. You're elected by voters, but you serve students. Almost none of them are entitled to vote. And the reason districts are so important is, let's compare Clayton to Bay Point. Well, Clayton, 35% of the population are voters, and 20% are students. Now with Bay Point, and 10% of the population vote, and 25% are students. So there's like 4 times the number of voters for each student in between those two areas. So that's part of what it's doing. It's magnifying the voice in these places that just don't have many voters, but have a lot of kids.
I know.
So that's I think what the big idea here. Now, going back to the safe harbor and others, most people think that the California Voting Rights Act Once we don't have a federal problem, you can do whatever you want. Now, Martinez took that a little far, and they've got a judge here to say, I'm not so sure that political gerrymandering is unlimited in California. But, you know, given where you are, you could take care of yourselves if that was the only thing you were doing, and it wouldn't look terribly bad. But you're going to be you need to be accountable, as you know, not just to the courts, but to your constituents. And they want everybody to have a fair shot. So one of the hidden advantages of doing it this late in the season, which I know is unpopular, because the data ain't perfect and all this, is it does provide a transition. This is a one-time only thing. And I'm inclined to think of it a little bit as a rough draft, provided you get it right next time. And that provides a little more transition for the incumbents. This isn't about driving anybody out, and it shouldn't be. And I fight against that. So I think that's the benefit. And just get it right next time when you have perfect data. It really will be perfect data. I don't think the problem is 9 years. Not going to be serious distortions here the way there was in San Ramon. So it'll be okay. The real distinct thing here is the looming mid next decade when the Naval Weapons Station changes the number of students in a big way. And we can think about whether there's some planning we can do for that. But I think that we can get through this, and I just don't think we can make much progress over the summer. I look forward to working with your attorney. I think we've cleared the air and made clear that I want to give you an extension. I've given everybody extensions, and the other guys, they don't like it. They complained to the legislature, and the legislature's kind of said, you gotta cut it back. You gotta be a little stricter on this. And I respect that, because if this goes too long, I've had two situations where everything was good by the minority, all the trustees had their own districts worked out, and then if you let it go on too long, then they start all of a sudden looking for opportunities politically, and it got ugly. So we're not going to go there. We're going to do this the right way. I'm going to work not only with you, but very hard with you to get the right answer, because you deserve it, and your voters deserve it, because it is about the voters and giving them each voice. And I know you do that. I want to say one more thing, and that is about this idea of balkanization. I know it's kind of a tempting notion, but think about it. I mean, Hamilton wrote about representative democracy and about how eliminated factions and having somebody from a single member constituency. That's when we elect the United States Congressman. We elect from single member constituencies for practically everything in this country, and did until about 100 years ago. And then in the South, we realized that there were some places where black people were starting to vote, and they didn't particularly like Irish neighborhoods picking people. There was a movement towards at large. And the person who really championed this and called it out in 1965 and in 75, the Voting Rights Act, was Don Edwards, who was a congressman for what is now San Ramon. And so there really, there is substance here. I know that it wasn't the intent in California. No place has as much government as California. So local at large is kind of isn't sinister in California, but it still has that effect. So this is kind of bringing things back to the way we do. You and your successors, and as long as you serve, have the responsibility to serve everybody. Just like Congressman DeSonia, he's a United States Congressman. We understand that. There's no question about his loyalties. But thank God we have somebody in that place who represents our values, actually knows about what we need and how that differs from other parts. That's the basic concept here. And I hope you can embrace that, because we live in a big state and we have a legislature which has one size fits all and is telling us to do it. And they, in one of their occasional acts of wisdom, have said, checks and balances means there needs to be somebody really local to you. So I hope you can embrace those ideas, and it's going to work out very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Eddie Burson.
Hello, I address you now as Eddie Bursan, not as the mayor, former mayor of Concord, or a city council, or the person who's gone through all this. But I will share the experiences. Number one, to answer the question about communities of interest. In the city, when we did it in the city of Concord, one of the communities of interest was renters. And it is a significant factor in our districts, and then you mentioned Carroll Road. If you look at our 5 districts, Carroll Road is divided a little bit on each side, up and down, based on the community of interest of renters. Likewise, it also had an impact in the division of Monument Boulevard, where Monument Boulevard was made a border rather than on both sides. So I would suggest that that be one of the considerations that you make. On the issue of 10%, we got blown away totally on 10%, so we were, in fact, we were told to focus 3 to 5, and in fact, we did our 5 districts and we're in of 22,000 and then a bunch of hundreds. So we were within 1 to 2% on all. On the issue of precincts, one of our earliest decisions was that we would order that the districts had to be divided along precinct lines, with the only exception being the empty precinct, which was the Concord Naval Weapons Station. This is because of sanity. There are 3 different water districts in the city of Concord. We also have some other bizarre districts. So by keeping it with precincts, not only were we able to keep the Joe Cansamellas relatively happy, but it also meant when they had to officiate and make the official drawing of the whatever we sent, all right, they were able to do it very quickly. I would also advise that whatever they did Martinez, that's not the way to do it. The League of Cities has held district representations, and quite frankly, I'm very proud they use Martinez as an example of not how to do it, and they use Concord as how to do it. We did it with 90 days flat because we were not exactly on the good graces of the one who issued the petition, nor was he on our good graces. But we did it in 90 days flat. It included taking the meetings to the community, to the neighborhood. In the Monument Impact we had another one in the Uptown area. We had another one over by closer to Clayton. And of course we had the ones in our own. We also sent out a mailer to everybody. All right, so that we were made sure that we all covered. And we all went pretty much out there. We also had a very active webpage, including allowing people to draw their own maps and submit them. And we went through a process where we received the maps from the people, we received the maps from the demographer, and we revised them, and then we went through the second revision, and all this within a 30-day period. We were moved very efficiently. And then finally, when we came down to the final city council meeting, we swapped 3 precincts for various reasons. So again, I would advise you to get a hold of Suzanne Brown, who could also advise you on everything that we went through. We looked at the hybrid of at-large and other, totally blown away, as he mentioned, under the safe harbor. The 1 city or 2 cities in the Bay Area that has it, which is either Hayward or San Leandro, they have this weird concept where you have to be a resident of the precinct, but you run at large. So you could actually be hated in your district and be elected 4 to 1. Okay? We as a city, we were allowed to have a mayor at large. Not a mayor and a vice mayor, which is what I wanted, but okay. I do not know if it applies to school boards where if you wanted to have a president of the school board voted at large. I have no information on that, but I can tell you this much. You're not gonna get away with 3 precincts and two other. As for your fear, everyone faces the fear of fiefdom, that it's going to be the Monument versus Sun Terrace, or Dana Estates in this corner and Bishop Estates over there. The reality is that if you look around, our water boards are districts. Sanitation boards are districts. Our college boards have districts. They kind of like, it makes it work. The thing that will make it unravel is them, the electorate. The elected official, if he is under tremendous, or she is under tremendous pressure to take care of Oak Grove as opposed to the rest of the city, all right, that's going to be a problem. But the reality is that we know, and all of us, we've gone through this transition. We actually even had several meetings of our council to talk about district norms. We know that someone who lives in my district, Oak Grove, well, yeah, they're going to go shopping in Todos Santos. They're going to go to the Veranda in another district. The kids are going to go to Northgate, or they're going to go to Olympic, or whatever. It's a challenge, I agree. We are not San Francisco. You are not San Francisco. All right? So the fear of colloquialism or localism is a fear, but it's not debilitating. It's more of an illusion than a delusion. All right? You see it, but you don't have to believe it. So those are my quick things, and I know I'm not bad, 40 seconds over. So there you go.
It's more than 40 seconds.
Well, this says 3:46.
We stopped timing.
Oh, that's 3 minutes and 46 seconds over.
3 minutes and 49 seconds.
Oh, okay, well then I feel good.
It's a public hearing.
Do you have any questions?
No, thank you though for that.
And I am available, like you would think you would have this without me here, come on.
We need to do a quick meeting extension, so if someone wanna make a motion.
Get started.
Pause for 1 second here.
I'll make a motion, you can amend it. I move that we extend the meeting until 12 o'clock.
Sure, I got nothing to do.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a first and a second to extend the meeting till.
Is that enough time?
Yeah, it should be. We have a motion, first and a second, to extend till midnight. Okay. So, Ms. Mayo moved and Ms. Mason second.
We still have more than 20 minutes.
That passes 4001. Okay, so we have another speaker, Michael Schneider.
I'll be quick. Just some observations as to, again, the notice of what had gone out, presumably to the public. It just really amazes me how we as we have all these other communication devices already in place, Peach Jars, School Loop, our own PTAs, and how none of them were able to get the word out about this meeting either. And so I really think that as a whole, you know, as the district, should really look at the communication side and creating a social media type checklist where they could go ahead and post these items to Peach Jar, Facebook, Nextdoor, and have somebody within those areas go ahead and verify. And this way you would feel more confident that your messages are getting out, including going to the public website and allowing people to register so they get notified when items are updated on the website. It's just a way of getting word out. As it's not just the parents, it's community, and that's something that I think this board really look at as far as improving in the future. My question on this whole item is, will this be going also to the city councils? Because this is a community item, Pleasant Hill, Walnut Creek, Concord, so that they can go ahead and, maybe they don't have kids in the school yet, but they will in 5 years, to go ahead and help get this word out and get the proper public input. And that would be it. Communication, please.
I think it's important, once again, to note that the calendar is not our friend when you talk about school districts. I personally have been communicating with a lot of people since May 13th. A lot of them were more concerned about getting school closed and kids graduated, which is their job. So I apologize to the community if they believe that we have not communicated with them. I will just say that it's the nature of the school district, and we will be working very hard, and if there's anybody who wants to recommend any other process, I'd be happy to look at that. I didn't really want to burden the school principals when they're trying to get their schools closed now. They'll be here until the end of June, but they're working to close their school down. And we'll keep working on it. Oh, it also indicates to me what you used to have here is a public information officer.
I was going to bring that up.
And you don't have one now, and I really feel strongly that you need, I know you're in budget cuts and all that kind of thing, but it's the kind of thing I think that can, in the long run, save you more money than cost.
So, I guess I
Now
want
Nellie's leaving.
I want to respond. Yes, we don't have the communications person that we did have at one point in time. I do believe that there were ads. Was there an ad run in the paper?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we had ads in the paper. I believe it was on Facebook as well as our.
We have a social media presence, and
Right.
we sent it out to the school sites when the principals were in the process of sending it out, but it just didn't happen because the last 2 weeks of school. And the second part of it is we didn't have a board meeting on Memorial Day, which we didn't want to have.
And
So all these things happen, but I think Mr. Rafferty's going to help us out. He's going to extend our time, and we're going to set things up late August, early September, when everybody's back and has a lot of energy to get school started. And then you all will be talking more about this in September.
And I realize this is really important, but right now through these budget discussions, it's sobering to think about mailing to every household in the Mount Diablo School District based on the expense to do that. So I guess we could look into what it would cost to mail to every
Let's vote
household.
mailing now.
But the last time
40
we
cents a piece?
we really got slammed when we did some mailing during some of our school bond measures when the district did some mailing.
I'll make a
because of the
comment for
expense.
Mr. Brissan. As I understand it, Concord's population is about 120, 130,000. This district has 125,000 registered voters. So.
Well, I appreciate your comment, and I'm just trying to think about the expense of mailing to everybody, so.
Yeah, I think other ideas have been brought up too, in terms of the things we can do within our district, so.
I do know that some principals have asked me if they can do a robocall. I said, please do.
Yeah, right.
What you normally do to contact your community, but they all, and to a person, the ones I've talked to, is like, I just don't think it's going to be effective now.
As a parent, I did see some of that communication from certain schools.
Right.
So it did happen, but it was in the middle of
Peaceful.
graduations and all of these
Peaceful.
other things that are going on just because of the legal timeline. So I really appreciate Mr. Rafferty's openness to extending, because our primary communication is through the schools during the school year. And so August, September, that's going to be much better than July. And, you know, the reason we added those July meetings, those were not required meetings. Those were additional community meetings because we, all of us here, really do want to have an inclusive process that really does reach out into the different communities. So being able to do that at a time when people are around is very, very helpful. And I also want to just say thank you to the staff for putting
Yes.
together the website that we have. I know it doesn't have everything on it just
No,
yet,
we're working on
but
it.
there was a whole lot of work that had to be done, I know, from the legal side, as well as, you know, everything else to get the the FAQ up there and start to begin to get English and Spanish versions of everything. So I think that will continue to be a place where people can get
We'll
information.
continue to work on it, yes.
One thought I had though is, I know we have like for LCAP on the website, we have a form that people can click to give their feedback, either in English or Spanish. Maybe we can just have a click form like that, rather than needing to email you and have you
Ms.
get a
Sachs can
million
help you with
emails.
that.
So
Or help
maybe that would be a
Mr.
simple way.
Whitman or the IT folks at GIS has been very helpful, because you understand you have a lawyer running a PR system, and that's not a good idea. So
Exactly.
We're trying to get it to the people who know what they're doing.
Not spending legal time on receiving emails would be great.
It's flat rate, don't we?
Okay, well, we thank everyone for your comments and thoughts. We're going to keep thinking about this. Like I said, it's complicated, so we're going to close the. Bring them down. I can't read them from here.
Don't need to fill out a card on this one.
No, you don't have to.
Not on this one. Good evening. So, I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not. I've seen very, very dysfunctional boards because of this type of stuff. My concern now is everybody knows that populations are not static. Populations are fluid. They flow from one area to the other. You have gentrification, you have slum building, the whole process from one end to the other. What happens in 10 years? At least the feds have got enough brains to say, oh, hey, we need to do a census every 10 years. Is this district going to redo these lines every 10 years?
Yep.
Yep, we have to do it in 2 years.
Have to do it in 2 years.
Okay, that part I missed.
2021.
Okay, that's good, because you got to account for the shifting. My other real concern is there's a lot of animosity in this district. There's a whole lot of animosity from one end to the other of this district, which brings concerns of dysfunctionality when being elected by district. How do you overcome that? I have no idea. But I think it will rear its ugly head in the beginning. We've already fought a couple of battles with a couple of groups. I don't see those groups going away anytime soon. That's food for thought. Thank you.
On that cheerful note,
Once again, they never said democracy was a neat and efficient process.
I guess you didn't need to.
It's all good. Everyone except John did it, so.
And then of course Dan will, Dan will do his exegesis on democracy, so we'll go for it, Dan.
I won't go into democracy. You all have talked enough about demos this evening. I think and I hope that y'all have heard from the community this evening about the importance of connecting and communicating these meetings and these hearings so that you're getting that wider input. There are several ways that you all have historically done that have been mentioned, things like specifically reaching out through the school sites with those robocalls and those emails, neither of which happened. You did put it on Facebook on June 7th, 3 days before today. You didn't put it out on your Twitters, but there are those things. I am not too much a believer that the newspaper is a way to communicate with our community, because generally speaking, people don't read newspapers anymore. But I also know that you need to communicate with a wider swath than just our families. But I do think it's important to start there, and getting that phone call and getting that email are probably two of the most effective ways y'all have, because most of your parents, of the parents of the students in this community, have a phone and you have that number, and most of them have an email and you have that, and so that can be a wonderful way to start. But I do support the idea of having community meetings out in the different areas of our district between now and when you have to make a decision, because it will mean that you all can get broader input from the community. One of the things that I think is important is for all of us to have a data set that we can base our ideas on. My question to you was the PowerPoint presented by the demographer provided to the board in writing. Do you all have a copy of it?
No, we don't have a copy.
Not yet. So I would love it if that when you all get one, we get one too, or maybe that it's connected on the web page or attached to future agendas so that we can see that data. I couldn't read a single thing when it was up there. I don't know if you all could. Maybe you have better eyesight than I do. But there was...
It'll be on the web page and it'll be on the agenda,
Wonderful, thank you.
especially for the next public meeting.
I think those things are important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And for people watching this on video, if they're trying to click on it as well.
We don't have that kind of video set up.
Onto the webpage.
Okay, any other comments or ideas? Okay.
We'll be back
We'll be
in
back,
2 weeks.
yeah, with ongoing, it's just the beginning, so, thank you for everybody's
It's just the
input.
beginning.
We'll close the public hearing. And we move on to 17.6, which is the appointment of Mr. Jim Walsh to the 2018 Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
I would just say, my comment here is we would now have 5 people from Concord, 1 person from Walnut Creek, and 2 people from Clayton on this committee, which doesn't seem very representative of the district, since we've been talking about being representative of the district all evening. That's my comment.
We still have some spots open, right?
Yeah.
Some spots open.
I don't think the committee has ever denied anyone the ability to serve on the committee.
Except last meeting.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Madam President, I move to approve the appointment of Mr. Jim Walsh to the 2018 Measure J Citizen Bond Oversight Committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Further discussion, we'll go to vote. That passes 4001. Thank you. 17.7 is the agreement between Mount Diablo Unified School District and the Todos Santos Business Association Arts Foundation Incorporated, the foundation for risk sharing particular to the 2019 4th of July celebration.
Madam President, I would move that we approve this agreement between Mount Diablo Unified School District and Todos Santos Business Association.
Second.
We have a first and a second, and we'll go to the vote. And that passes 4001. Thank you. 17.8 is for information and updated courses of study for Health Science 1 and Health Science 2. So it'll come back. 17.9, unless there's questions. No, okay. 17.9, declaration of need for fully qualified educators. This is on for action. I think it's self-explanatory. Rick, do you want me to leave it?
Madam President, I would move that we approve the declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Second that?
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll go to the vote. That passes 4001. Thank you. This is for information, classified personnel job description for bond analyst. Do you have any questions tonight? Otherwise, it'll come back the next meeting.
I appreciate the answers to my questions. The work that this individual will do is specifically for bond funds. Is that accurate? But I thought I saw something in here that made me ask the question. So I'll communicate with you again when I find my concern. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to 17.11, classified personnel job description for attendance / student records coordinators. Again, this is for information, so it will come back. Go to 17.12, contract extension for Eagle Software Aries Student Information System for 2019-20.
Madam President, I move to approve 17.12 contract extension for Eagle Software Aries Student Information System.
Second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Go to the vote. And that passes 4001. We're at 17.13, which is the contract amendment number 1 to Capital Engineering Consultants Incorporated for the California Proposition 39 California Energy Acts of 2012. This is here for action.
I make a motion we approve contract number 1 to Capital Engineering Consultants, Inc. for the California Proposition 39 California Energy Acts of 2012 to design the energy management system.
Second. We have a first and a second. We'll go to the vote. That passes 4001. Thank you. 17.14. So the award of request for qualification number 1827 unleaded gas and diesel fuel with Merrimack Energy Group. This is up for action.
I move that the board approve the award of request for qualification for unleaded gas and diesel fuel, for the district to Merrimack Petroleum Incorporated.
Second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll go to the vote.
Mr. Estrada moves things.
So we had a Miss Mayo and Miss Mason. We're going at a pace now. That passes 4001. Thank you. 17.15, award of request for quotation for number 1837, custodial cleaning supplies for Hilliard Incorporated for the fiscal year 2019-20 and for 2 one-year options to renew. This is up for action.
I make a motion to approve the award of RFQ number 1837, custodial cleaning supplies to Hilliard Inc. for fiscal year 2019-2020 and for 2 one-year options to renew.
Second. Okay, we have a first and a second. Miss Mason, Miss Mayo, second. And that passes 4001. Thank you. 17, right? 1717 is contract with McGrath Corporation, DBA Mobile Modular.
1716.
Oh, sorry, okay, sorry. 1716, award for a request for quotation RFQ number 1838 for recurring mop service. I saw the mops again, I thought it was the same one. How many mops can you get? Yeah. Mop services to Merrimack Uniform Services for the fiscal year 2019-20 and for 2 one-year options to renew.
I move to approve item 17.16.
Mr. Jackson likes the mops.
I second that.
Okay, so Ms. Cowan moved and Ms. Mason second. passes 4001. Okay, 1717, contract with McGrath Corporation for DBA Mobile Modular Management Corporation for the lease of a modular office unit to support the food and nutrition warehouse project. This is up for action.
Make a motion, we approve the contract with McGrath Corporation, DBA jumped on it, Modular Management Corporation for the lease of modular office unit to support the food and nutrition warehouse project.
Okay, Ms. Mason
Second.
moves and Ms. Count seconds.
So what threw me with this docket when I first read it was that the modular is going to be used by the transportation and warehouse departments, not food services. So. Based on the title of the document. But it's all good.
But you have voted differently.
No, well,
I know, you're right, you're right.
I asked the question.
4001, thank you. Uh, 1718, award of project for Ayers Elementary School emergency field repair per California Public Contract Code 20113 to Bosco Construction Services Incorporated.
I make a motion to approve the award project to Ayers Elementary School emergency field repair for California Public Code number 20113 to Bosco Construction Services, Inc.
Second.
We'll go to vote.
I'm wondering if all the squirrels are just gonna move over to Silverwood now. Let's send them to the pavilion, that's a good idea.
And that passes 4001, thank you. Okay, we're at 17.19, award of contract for elementary school playground rubber surface repairs and replacements at Bancroft, Meadow Homes, and Shore Acres Elementary Schools to Spectra Turf Incorporated. This is up for action.
Madam President, I move that we approve the awarded contract for elementary school playground rubber surface repairs and replacements at Bancroft, Meadow Homes, Shore Acres Elementary Schools to Spectra Turf.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and we'll go to vote. And that passes 4001, thank you. Uh, 17.20, award of project for elementary school playground rubber surface repairs and replacements at Hidden Valley Elementary, Valley Verde Elementary Schools to Robertson Recreational Services.
Madam President, I move to approve item 1720, award of project for elementary school playground rubber service repairs for Hidden Valley Elementary and Valley Verde Elementary Schools to Robertson Recreational Services.
Second that.
Okay, we have first Ms. Cowan moved and Ms. Mason second.
It's our version of rubber baby bug.
That's true. And that passes 4001, thank you. And we are at 1721, award of contract for elementary school playground rubber surface repairs and replacements at Hidden Valley Elementary School to DuraSafe/Soft Surfaces Incorporated.
Madam President, I move that we approve the awarded contract for elementary school playground rubber surface repairs and replacements at Hidden Valley Elementary School to DuraSafe Soft Surfaces Incorporated.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
Can I just ask a question on that one? Since the 1720 and 1721 were both Hidden Valley Elementary, both having to do with playground rubber surface repairs and replacements, but they're different companies. Maybe just a little explanation on that one.
There are two different types of surfaces, one is a replacement of the rubber and one the other surface of the rubber as well. Two different type of applications.
A repair and a replacement,
Yes.
two different places.
In two different locations.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a big playground area at that school.
And that passes 4001. Thank you. So we are at our meeting extension. I do have a couple of things to sign, so, but then we are adjourned. So thank you. Made it long before midnight. That's good.
Yeah, that means you have to stay on the night.